next page. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Ms. Bolton.
Yay!
You're here.
I mean, you weren't, like,
Yeah,
you changed it up.
I'm gonna switch it around.
You wanted to see if I was awake?
You wanted to sit over here.
I didn't know I was that important and sitting over here to change the order of things, but I'm fine.
Mr. Babel,
Here.
Ms. Meister,
Here.
Ms. Meyer,
Here.
Mr. Walters,
Here.
and Mr. Burns.
Just so everybody knows, Mr. Burns is gonna be here this evening. He's just gonna be a little bit late. And I've already instructed Penny to make notes in our minutes. And when he comes in, she will note the time. So in the minutes, it shows that we have a quorum. So at this point, what I'd like to do is ask for a motion to approve the minutes from the November 13th, 2024 council meeting. And obviously, if you have questions on that, I want to ask those first.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from November 13th, 2024 council meeting. This, on page 1 of 2, we've got the ETI truck maintenance repairs of $6,900.15. Was that the damage to the truck that was on the other property that they vandalized?
No, that's, I think, the repairs to the truck that it was there for. Isn't it?
Is that the repair? Okay.
It was there to be repaired, and then it got vandalized. That should be covered under our
The
insurance.
insurance, that's what I was going to ask. Okay, thank you.
We did file an insurance claim and it's not repairable. Two vendors we take it to, so the service director and I are still working with the insurance company to figure out how we're going to be made whole with that. We may very well need a new truck then. The fiberglass was broken away to get in full chests and it can't be repaired. So the 6,900 is actually two charges combined for the service of the bucket truck, so we get the lights up in time.
Any other questions? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Beth Meister. Any further questions? Penny, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Walters,
Yes.
Ms. Bolton,
Yes.
Ms. Meyer,
Yes.
Ms. Meister,
Yes.
Mr. Babel.
Yay.
Motion
He's
passes.
keeping you on your.
That's me.
Yeah. Good, keep it up.
Chuck told me to.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll try not to doze off tonight.
Before I ask for a motion on it, do you have anything you want to say about the permanent appropriations for 2025?
No, Justin and I had met, finance meeting, we met, we went over them. I feel very comfortable with these amounts and these appropriations for each fund. And so people understand, we can make them permanent, but in the, next year at the end of the year, and we need to move money around inside that fund, it can be done. But this will get us so we can get going and, for January, because that's right around the corner. So we can pay people, but I'm very comfortable with the permanent appropriation. And I think
As chairman of the finance committee, I am as well. I also know how flexible it is and easy it is if you have money left over in one account line item to move it to another.
Right.
Very easy to do. We don't have to be exact. And this will help you get going and get started, making the first payroll of next year.
and being,
I used to
Being
do
in
a
for a year.
temporary and then a permanent, and this is easier to go
oh, it
straight
is.
to this.
Once you do
I support it.
temporary, then you gotta redo all of them.
Is there a number on that appropriation ordinance?
They don't have the
I don't have the ordinance.
draft is an ordinance.
Yeah.
This is for the.
Permanent appropriations.
I do.
And what will that number be?
You can do it after the fact, if you just get a number.
It'll be number 4, if we vote on it now, it'll be number 14.
Ordinance 14,
Or
Robert,
that we like to vote on.
Robert, you need to-
that's fine. I'll make a motion to,
Before you do that,
enter.
Yeah, go ahead.
did you move those monies that we talked about?
Yep.
in front? What account did you move it into for the, marriage court stuff?
It was in general.
It's in-
Under
Did
mayor's
everybody-
court, right?
That, yeah, that was gonna move it into the marriage court.
Well, mayor's
Well,
court
that's,
is under
it's in
general.
general funds. Mayor's court is in general fund.
It's a subcategory of the general fund.
I don't have.
See,
the number
look.
on my-
Oh, you know what? It's on the bottom, but see Mayor's Court on the bottom?
Yeah, but there's no. number.
I know. Oh, yeah, go to page 3. It's on the third line, 51. Yes, the way. If you go to the third page of the general fund, you see salaries on the top. That's everything.
Yeah.
I've got it. I'm uncomfortable. I did this too many years.
I don't see any.
Just think, I know. So here. That whole amount,
Oh,
it's,
okay,
it's,
I see.
it's that and everything, so that's that. Yeah, just the way that's printed off. Yeah, actually, when we had the finance meeting, I made those changes as we were talking.
So I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 14, 2025, 24.
So,
You guys got me all messed up.
hang on a second.
Yes,
With respect to the general fund, and we talked about this, you got down here online, or on the first page, fire 120. Contract, 115,632, which is 2024. You've got 265,000 for the 2025. That's,
that is just appropriation, that doesn't mean they have approved the
as I said,
contract.
not.
That is just
something-
if they sign a contract, it's there. That doesn't mean that,
So are you wanting to adopt this, or you want to hold off?
Yeah, no, I want to adopt permanent so she can roll into the next year and do a payroll and.
yeah, because once I mean, it's up to you guys, but once I do the final pay in December, I can go ahead and start working in January. And even though I'm in December, I can start
Sure.
getting things, yeah.
Well, you made a motion to adopt.
Yes, I did.
Anybody second it?
I will second.
Second by Ms. Meister. Any further discussion? Penny, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Bolton,
Yay.
Mr. Babel,
Okay,
Ms. Meister,
Yes.
Ms. Meyer,
Yes.
Mr. Williams. Walters. Walters, I'm sorry, Mr. Walters.
yes.
Thank you.
Motion passes 5-0. Okay, at this time, I'm gonna recommend that Mary Angeline, be appointed to our zoning appeals board by a vote of council. Mr. Walters asked me to talk to her about, being on the planning and zoning commission. I did that. Her preference was to be on this committee. So, if nobody knows who Lauren is here, I think everybody should. Before we go any further, I want to thank you for all the effort you put into our Christmas walk. And tons of people talked to me about, we can't believe you got that many people in there. I said, well, Mary Angelina, well, rodeo, getting ready to be here at our Christmas walk. And it was a fantastic, just fantastic parade. So thank you. Is there any questions that members of council would like to ask before we vote?
Well, I have a general question. Is there an opening on the planning commission? The planning commission, because he said they had asked her to do one or the other. I understand that we already have 3 residents on the planning commission. And so I'm wondering if there's an opening on the planning.
Well, I think this is from the appeals board.
It is, but I thought you asked him to see if he wanted to be on the planning commission.
Yeah.
So I just wondered if Mark or or Nancy or one of the others was dropping off.
No, I just felt that there would be a good fit of adding another citizen to the appeal.
To the appeals, but not the planning commission.
Correct.
That's okay. Because I think the ORC calls for the mayor, one council member, and 3 residents to be on the planning commission, and that's what threw me off. So I'm on
Any questions or comments anybody wants to ask? This, then I'm going to ask for a motion to approve Mary Angeline as our newest member of the appeal.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Walters,
I'll second.
second by Ms. Meister. Any further discussion? No discussion, please take the roll, please.
Mr. Walters,
Yes.
Ms. Meyer,
Yes.
Ms. Meister,
Yes.
Mr. Babel,
Yay.
Ms. Bolton.
Yay.
Congratulations. Motion approved 5-0. Do you have any comments or anything you want to say here before you,
I'm just excited to get started. I hope I keep busy.
Bolton.
we'll figure that out. Yeah,
We still have one vacancy on that.
we still have one vacancy. I'm gonna come out, we're gonna swear you in at this time here. And you're gonna have to wait till I get my glasses on because I won't be able to read otherwise. And you're going to repeat after me. And then when we're finished, you're gonna go to Penny and you're gonna sign it. She'll witness it and date it. Would you raise your right hand, please? I,
I,
Mary Angeline,
Mary Angeline,
do hereby solemnly swear
do hereby solemnly swear
that I shall support the Constitution of the United States
that I shall support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and that I shall faithfully,
and that I shall faithfully,
honestly,
honestly,
and impartially
and impartially
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
of the Zoning Appeals Board
of the Zoning Appeals Board
during the term of my office
during the term of my office
for the Village of Cleves
for the Village of Cleves
through December 31st, 2026.
through December 31st, 2026.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, at this time, this is the public session, and I'll just read the standard. The Village of Cleves Council recognizes the importance of citizen involvement in the legislative process. Residents must register with the village clerk and state their first and last name, address, and the topic they wish to discuss. We ask that questions and comments be directed respectfully to the mayor. The time limit for resident is 3 minutes. Are there any residents who want to speak to the council? No one coming forward? We will move on to new business.
Did, you were gonna have a discussion about reinstatement of some other.
That's gonna be coming later. Did you want to make a statement on it?
Need to know.
Okay, all right. Okay, so we have a couple donations. And the first one is a check from the Three Rivers Women's Club to purchase the Christmas tree in the Cleves Commons. I believe that was $400 or $500. Do you remember?
Something like that.
I think it's $500. So I'd like to have a motion to accept
Oh,
that.
check was 500, yeah.
Sorry,
It was 500.
So move.
motion by Mr. Babel. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Meister. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure,
Do we have to accept these donations?
we should be.
We've
accepting.
never ever done that in the past. That's why I was wondering.
We have done it in the past this year.
Well, yeah, but I mean, for the last 20 years we haven't. So I'm just
You
curious.
should.
Is that the Ohio Revised Code or?
I'm going to, you want to.
I'm just curious because, I mean, it's not, we've never written up in an audit about
I don't think it can be written up regardless, but there should be a record.
There's supposed to have record of it.
There should be a record.
Yeah, the clerk always kept track of
I understand. but we-
that. That's fine,
we have
okay.
the public.
I was just curious.
Where are we? Do we just call the roll yet or not?
No.
Call the roll.
Motion.
Ms. Bolton?
Yay.
Mr. Babel?
Yay.
Ms. Meister?
Yes.
Ms. Meyer?
Yes.
Mr. Walters?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. We also have a motion to accept the check from Wardway Fuels. I'm not really sure what that was for, Justin, do you know or not?
I wasn't part of,
I know.
the solicitation of that, Miss Angeline Crowley.
Okay.
That's better.
When I called them to ask them to be afraid, they weren't comfortable putting lights on their cars. So they said they would give a donation.
Do you remember what the amount
They
was?
did not tell me what the amount was.
$250? So $250 by Wardway Fuels.
So
Did
is that-
they designate that anywhere, Mary? I mean, as to what
Yeah, was
account
that
that was
donated?
going?
That's good.
Yeah,
The Christmas parade.
great.
Do I have a motion to approve?
So move.
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Meister. Any further discussion? Please call the roll. there.
Ms. Bolton?
Yay.
Mr. Babel?
Yay.
Ms. Meister?
Yes.
Ms. Meyer?
Yes.
Mr. Walters?
Yes.
At this time, we're going to sort of go out of order. There's a reason why. If we get to where Jerry is going to give her report, we'd like to have a complete council here. As I said earlier, Mr. Burns is not here right now. In the event he's not here by the time we get through our reports, we may act on this after the executive session. That's not our preference, but we would like to have every council member involved in that vote. So at this point, we're going to move on to Ms. Bolton. If you would start with your report, please.
Yeah, we held a finance meeting on November 27th. Our fiscal officer reported and we went over the permanent appropriations. And, she presented those to you tonight. The village administrator also reported on a few items that we are looking at long-term. I don't want to panic anybody. One of them is a potential income tax and working with REDA, the Regional Income Tax Agency, to help give us information on how much that would produce, and all the rules and regulations that go along with that, and how that might actually be financially better for residents than a property tax. He also discussed the possibility of leveraging with Miami Township to form a JED, a Joint Economic District. The revenue may be shared with Miami Township. I think you have to have an income tax to do a JED, is that correct?
Yes.
Correct. It'd be a tax.
So there's advantages to looking at that option. He also reported that the water department is going to need to look at increase in rates. No late fees have been assessed in the water since COVID. And our rates have not increased in 9 years. Kevin, Mr. Burns talked about a CBDG grant that was granted. We were awarded $75,000 grant for the park. It has to be used for the park. Probably going to build a shelter or make an improvement on the shelter. Mr. Habig talked about the local law enforcement, and you'll hear more about that later. It's what we are putting in place so that we can enforce our ordinance. When they dissolved Mayor's Court 3 years ago, 4 years ago, it did not allow us then to enforce any of our ordinances. We didn't have a mechanism to do that. So more will be discussed about that later. The Hamilton County Sheriff's Office will still be the primary law enforcement agency, as the town marshal and any other detective would be focusing on zoning violations of our other ordinances. We also, Mr. Habig also brought up the police contract, which is currently $286,862 annually. Starting in 2025, the cost will decrease over the next 3 years based on subsidizing that's been approved by the county commissioners. However, once that's subsidized goes away, our costs could substantially increase in 2028. So we get a little bit of a reprieve. Also, the fire levy was discussed. The new proposed contract from Miami Township, we believe to be unreasonable, as it is asking us to increase our rate by 61% without what we believe to be the proper justification for that kind of an increase. The village administrator is working with other communities as well that are also affected to see what we can do about negotiating with the township on that. More to come. Stormwater update, Mayor Burkholz spoke with Jennifer Batter about a contract to map out the back of Coleman Woods and to also write an EPA plan. This is all having to do with our stormwater plan. And JMA came in at a cost less, almost $2,000 less than what Choice One charged us last year. So we are working with Jennifer Batter and our engineers on that in the future. The village administrator also asked us to consider setting aside a small amount for a Christmas party for the employees, which we did approve. So our employees will have a Christmas party this year. Mr. Burns expressed interest in working toward a capital grant. He stated this grant is only awarded every 2 years, so it needs to be worked on soon. And Mr. Burkholz said that there would be that there must be a recommendation from Hamilton County to apply for the capital grant, and that people find out the process. That was it. I don't know if I stayed within my time frame.
You did good.
Don't we get your extra minutes?
Yeah, she's got 10 minutes left.
Terry was my extra minute.
Look, I just want to comment one thing, that way we'll have to talk about it at the mayor's report, but I want to let you know that the mapping has been already completed. I talked to Jennifer Batter today, so they've already mapped the entire back of Coleman Woods, which was the last part of the subdivision in the village that has to be put into our mapping. And you mentioned, for example, the contract with Choice One, just so the residents understand, there was a contract last year signed to build our plan, which would have included mapping, okay, and it would have included also a submission to the EPA. That was going to have to be done by the village administrator or me, and I sort of took over it after Mr. Rahal left. And quite frankly, it's not an easy plan to write. Choice One never offered to do that. Jennifer Batter, GMA, did. And she said they'll have that completed by February, which will allow us to file our report with the EPA on April 1st. So we're moving in the right direction there. And then one other thing I'm going to mention, if you've not been by the Morgan Creek, which is also part of our stormwater, that is being dug out currently, should be completed by tomorrow. And we'll give you more details in the future. But, you know, we're getting it done. I think that's the most important thing. We are making progress. So, but we're getting it done. Any questions from the audience, finance committee, or? Okay. There's no question there. We're going to move on to Gary. I don't know if you want to skip over here and deal with your zoning commission. I know you've had a couple meetings and things like that. Is there anything you want to update people on?
The only, we had, at our last meeting, we had Miami Motel come and speak about putting a sign out on 50 on his property that I believe, as I understood it, we've been taken care of.
Yeah.
And the way it was left is that he's open for negotiations as to what the future of that piece of property would be. Initially, what was intended for was that they wanted to put a sign out there that would be not necessarily Miami, but would be to potentially be for other businesses. And that would have been that he would have sold signage to businesses that advertise on that. which I believe we're not keen on. I don't think that would have been one of the things that we would have, we being planning and zoning and council as well, would not have wanted that to happen. So I instructed them to work with our administrator on what could be done with that piece of property. And then I think going forward, I think we ought to let them maintain that property going forward as opposed to the village of Cleves. So the other one was the Lower River Road. We got the setbacks to them. The intent of that property is to be a lock and storage like the business across the street from them. But again, their plans are preliminary and they need to be drawn up, submitted to planning and zoning through the zoning officer. They would be looked at, given JMA for their initial input and so forth. And then we can go on and determine whether we would want a variance for that particular property or continue as, rezoning. So again, that's pretty much it. And that's how we left it. Nothing more. The next one, I believe, is December 21st. We have nothing on the agenda. I'm considering maybe canceling that since so close to Christmas, and really, unless there's anything that would come up, I've asked Ed, the zoning officer, if anything's come up, and nothing has. So we may wind up canceling that part.
Thank you very much. Mr. Burns is not here, and he told me, I don't think he was really getting much of our Parks Committee report based on our conversation with him today. But I want to make a couple comments just about the leadership that he has provided our village in the area of the Christmas walk. But not just there, he's also looking at a master plan to develop our park so that it becomes more of a destination type park. And I think that's what this Meister was talking about with the capital grant. And that's not an easy grant to get, but you get a large amount of money if you write the grant and it's approved. It does only come up twice. Every 2 years it comes. So we're gonna have to get going on that. But if you work at the Christmas walk, I've gotten all kinds of things. I don't know if council wants to talk about what they've heard from the community or the community wants to talk tonight. But he deserves a ton of credit for organizing and carrying this thing through. I spoke to his wife the other day and she was trying to encourage him to take a day off work because he's just gone nonstop making that happen. And I had one resident tell me that the parade brought her to tears because she never thought she'd ever see the type of parades that she enjoyed as a child. And I talked to Jerry's father, and he told me it was one of the biggest parades the village has ever seen. So he deserves a ton of credit.
And a unique parade.
Yeah.
When I heard a Blink parade, I thought, oh, that would really be neat if we can get the participants to do it. And it was phenomenal. If you missed it, I'm sorry you missed it, but it was phenomenal. The floats, the cars, everything was lit up and blinking or just decorated. It was just really over 40 entrants, correct? Yeah. So it was something to see. So
The sheriff's department did a great job too. They offered up aerial footage, which we have, and we'll be putting that on our website. So it really was something to behold.
that drone hovered over us at the tree lighting, and I'm like, who in the heck is it's doing a drone? Because it was just buzzing around, and I had no clue it was Hamilton County. I feel better now knowing.
And then it's last one, I mean, it's a lot of work.
It was low, pretty low too. It's coming in pretty low.
Yeah.
Stephanie, I love her. It was a lot of fun.
Well, you did get to hear the Taylor Middle School choir. You really missed a beautiful thing. My wife's comment was, it was a hallmark moment.
Yeah.
It really was. Made you proud to be here in Cleves. So when you see Kevin, let them know that
Give him an
it's much
attaboy.
appreciated. Okay, I'm just gonna continue moving on down here. We'll come back to you, Jerry, in a little bit. But, John Canuck will not be here tonight, Bill 14. The reason he's not here is I told him to stay home. I said, there's nothing you gotta say here that's that important tonight. John was here at 8:30 AM Saturday morning. I have no idea what time he left, you know,
Finished around
9 PM. So here he was here all day, donating his time to our.
On a Saturday.
Wow.
So when you see him, and I know Mr. Walters, I don't know if you want to make a statement, you had sent me a message, go ahead and.
I think if you look at, John as a whole, everything that he does for this Cleves community is just beyond imagination. Everything that comes from the streets that, you know, we have to prepare that he takes care of, maintenance department, he's involved with parks, he's involved with signs. And it really, the moment really did hit me when we were at our committees with parks and so forth, just how integral John does get involved with everything. And I think when I thanked him because of that fact on our way out, but I did send a message. I think it's important that, like I said, when you think about it, everything kind of revolves around John and the parks and just how he gets involved with it. And he does not put half the effort in. I mean, he puts 110% of the effort in. So I told him, I said, I think it was important. I'm sorry he's not here
Yeah,
to be.
it's
part of
on
the
tape, you can watch it.
Well, and I think it's important that it be noted. So I appreciate everything and all his efforts.
And we got snow coming over here before too long, and he puts a ton of hours in.
Well, that's the other thing. So
Yeah, John is, he's a big part of our village. Justin, I'm gonna have you move on, if you would, please, to your report.
In no particular order. Penny and I worked with PNC, said he was involved as well. We now have a new credit card machine that we've implemented. Coordinated with PNC to obtain, install, and train our staff a few weeks ago on a machine to accept electronic payments again. That includes Apple Pay and other types of proprietary payments. So we're now able to do that. We're also evaluating a second device with cellular capabilities for remote use in the parks this year, which will enhance our ability to collect. Right now, it's all cash, so it'll give us the ability to collect electronically for entrance, but also we believe that it'll enhance our sales when it comes to concessions, which Daniel Gilligan, our parks director, implemented this fall. That was a great success. Thank you again to him for that.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Does this include waterworks payments or just village money paid to the village?
This is just money paid to the village.
Okay, I think that needs to be clarified for anybody
It
listening.
doesn't change anything.
They might think they can start paying their water bills that way.
Yeah. Doesn't change, and this is physical on-site card machine. We're also working with PNC to streamline process of waterworks. Sometime in the first quarter of 2025, we look to offer the ability for electronic and online payments for your water bill. So we're also working with PNC on that. That's a more comprehensive process.
That's
So
why I wanted to clarify.
working with our office manager, clerk, Pam, and myself, and Cindy to roll that out first quarter of next year. But this machine is just for payments here at
Building permit,
Correct.
whatever, okay.
Yep. I also met with the Center for Local Government, who we partner with. They provided me with an informational session a few weeks ago. They offer us a wealth of resources, but they also manage our healthcare and fringe benefits for our employees. They recommended that I apply for their leadership course, which is a 6 to 7 month program where you attend one session per month. The cost for that's around $800. At this point, they put around 200 people through it. And really, this course offers just government-related knowledge specific to our area, and it offers a great networking opportunities with other communities. So been communicating with the mayor on that, and we're gonna report more when we make a decision.
Is that based around, with HR issues and benefits issues, or what?
The
What is
Center
the
for Local
big-
Government will handle a wealth of issues. For example, if I wanted to do a market rate analysis on salaries for a water technician, I can submit that question to the Center for Local Government, and they'll put a survey monkey out.
Gotcha, okay.
There's other, I mean, they come to us frequently where communities just share information. I think one of the most recent ones was, there was a community on the east side that wanted to know, did you have a mayor's court? And if you do, who's your magistrate? How many hours a month do they work? It's just a way to get a baseline of what other communities are doing, what their expenses are, and also a good opportunity to network.
But a 7-month training,
It's one day a month. It's 1 day a month.
I got to.
And so what you do is
I
you,
was just saying, what are they gonna train you to
yeah,
do, Jeff?
well, and so it goes over everything from budgeting to records requests. I actually have an information.
Okay, so it's an expanding thing, it's not just designed for the HR and payroll that you were
Correct.
started out, okay.
Pretty much if you have any issue that you need to look at within your community, they're there to do that. They were the ones, the primary one we used for, when we did our administrator search. They were very helpful.
I'm familiar with,
Right, just some quick numbers on it for you. On the date, they put 174 individuals through it that have graduated. They partner with Xavier University. They offer leadership, strength-based leadership, human resource management, communications, budgeting and finance principles, land use and economic development, and other courses.
okay. Thank you.
Moving on, as mentioned before, the Cleves Christmas party, that's scheduled for December 16th from 10 to 2 p.m. at the Miami Township Hall. I'd like to thank Miami Township for offering the facility to us at no charge. Appreciate it.
There's still no heat.
If there's not heat still, we have come up with a solution to provide heat. So we'll move our heaters back down there. We've invited all of our staff as well as the elected officials and Hampton County Sheriff's Office personnel have been invited to that. It's going to be catered by Incline Smoke Shack. There will be cake and refreshments as well. So we look for it to be a good time. We spoke just a moment ago. There's a lot of things to be in order. We have limited personnel. We've really come together the past month to accomplish a lot. And I think that everybody's deserving of thanks there. Waterworks Department, current events and enhancements. We've been collaborating with the contract to resolve our phone and network issues. Happy to report, knock on wood, at this point, our internet and phones have been back up for 2 weeks since our AV contractor was on site. I've also partnered with a physical security specialist to conduct an audit of our current facilities and recommend surveillance and access control measures to enhance our security there at the waterworks plant specifically. Before we make any purchases, there are EPA grants that can help fund that. So I will provide updates as we have additional information there. The Christmas walk, some recap and initiatives that have come out of that. As Mayor Burkholz and others have said, it was an overwhelming success. We received a lot of positive feedback from both residents and our business owners. I think I made it to every business. And I was able to speak with most of them who were working that day. So thank you for being there. When I was speaking to our business owners, they expressed interest in forming a commerce committee that Mayor Burkholz and I have been working towards for a few months. And also implementing a DORA, designated outdoor refreshing area. Just some of my preliminary thoughts there are there's grant opportunities to establish not only a DORA but a master plan for our village, which I think is something that we need to do. So I will be submitting for the grant in 2025 to formalize a master plan for the village. Some special acknowledgments of my own. Again, John Knuff and Kevin Richardson from the maintenance department for their exceptional support. I mean, we just kept throwing stuff at these guys. They got it all done from I need a quart of firewood to I need burn barrels. pay the heated town halls out, and everything in between. So thanks again to them. I'd like to also thank Rusty Alexander from Waterworks for volunteering his time on Saturday. He also donated his golf cart to us, which was a huge help. I don't know how we would have got around without it. So it really showcased the future need for a village-owned cart. We're going to put on more of these events. But I'd like to also thank the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office personnel, Sergeant Carney, Corporal McGordy. He's with traffic safety. He's the deputy who brought the drone in. Not only did he stay out in the cold and record all of that for us, he went to my office and made sure it was downloaded. So we had the footage right away before he left. So thank you to him for that. I'd also like to thank Deputies Kramer, Bernard, Whitaker, and Harvey. They all agreed to either come in early or stay late on their shift with less than 24 hours notice to make sure that our parade went off safely. And also for Deputy Bono for working the detail all day just to make sure that traffic control was in order. I'll be writing them letters of appreciation to the sheriff here in the coming week. They really knocked out the park and they helped make it special. Some more on the proposed designated outdoor refreshment area, the Dora. We'd be considering a Dora between South Miami and Mount Nebo to the municipal building. That would encompass the corridor of Main Street, College, and Cleves Avenue there where Cleves Commons has been developed. Again, we'd be adding this to our master plan. And I plan to apply for a grant in the coming year to get some contractor assistance, just on giving us visual aids and putting a formal plan together.
So, can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
Like the downtown Dora, does that mean people will be able to walk the streets with drinks?
If we adopted it, and there would have to be legislative approval, but yes, it does. Now there would be processes and procedures we put in place. At this point, I've communicated with shipping it. And the way they control that is it's a cup. There are specific cups that the municipality orders.
That's what Cincinnati does. We give them away at the ballpark.
Yep, and they sell them to the liquor establishments. And then, basically, if you're going to be outside in the public within the Dora boundaries, your drink would have to be in that designated container.
So you would have to have purchased it at one of our local establishments.
The way I would recommend doing it, the way Cheviot does it, which seems to work well, is they just sell these to bars, and then the bars regulate through their liquor license. If you want to take a drink outside, you buy a Dora cup, whether it's small or large, and you could walk from establishment to establishment.
If you saved that Dora cup,
Well,
you could come down and put your own beer or wine in it anytime you wanted to, right?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I just know how at the stadium, you only get the Dora cup if
You're
you've
leaving.
got a drink that you purchased there and you haven't finished it yet. And then the Dora ends at a certain place.
So the way the Reds did it is you exited the stadium, you got a Dora cup, so you take your drink outside versus taking it out of a bottle.
If you didn't, you had to dump it in the trash can.
Correct.
We
You
couldn't
didn't
let
have-
you
you didn't
out.
purchase the cup, correct?
You don't purchase the cup, it was given to you free.
Correct.
And so this is in its infancy. So before we would finalize this, there will be more discussions with the Finance and Planning Committee. But also I think it's a good place for our Commerce Committee to discuss and see what works best for our bars and our business owners.
So how far would it expand, like the whole North and South Miami?
I think based off the strategic long-term planning that I've heard from Parks and our other committees at this point, it would be prudent to do it from South Miami to Mount Nebo down to the municipal building, which would cover the park and Kevin's future plans.
But at least Jackie's Bar completely out.
It does leave Jackie's Bar out. That's something we could consider. We do enter residential area. I don't know if that's something that we'd like to do.
So what prompted this and what's driving this? Is it just a notion? Because I think if you're looking to put the library down there, you have one
Yeah.
bar, and you have the,
Two bars.
the
and a
restaurant. So what-
In between there, you have two bars and the restaurant. Serves alcohol.
I don't know what-
You got
Another
Ann's.
bar and then seven.
Oh, okay, I'm up there on the hill. Yeah, okay.
I'm worried about
Not,
people crossing Bridgetown Road. So if you're gonna extend it all the way to here, you got people that are gonna be crossing Bridgetown Road, East State.
And so this
That
is,
might be an issue.
this is in, like I said, it's in its infancy, where this came about. There's been some elected officials who have proposed it. There's been a lot of community stakeholders and business owners that have recommended it.
Such as,
Many communities have it. Yes, sir.
This really happens during special events, correct? I mean,
Well, a door is permanent, but specifically we would capitalize on it during a
I
special.
mean, Bridgetown Road would be closed during a special event, I would imagine. You're saying they could do that 365 days a year?
I'm sure that there's other limitations that we could put on it, but a door is a permanent designated outdoor area. And then so there have to be signage. And again, I'm not pushing any specifics. I'm trying to conceptualize it so there can
What's
be.
keeping them from going to their car and real free throwing their stuff?
Nothing.
I think
you say it's
that's,
an infancy, correct?
Correct.
Just
Yeah.
plan, so something.
Just helping people conceptualize at a starting point of the ideas that I've heard. I've compiled them. On face value, I don't think it's a bad idea. Many successful communities have done it. They had minimal or no problems. There's going to be concerns, and I think that as we discuss it more, those concerns will come up, and we'll make decisions or workarounds.
Should be a hazard in the sense that there's a lot of bars along the road there. They've got their curbs that they put in and so forth. It makes it very difficult to go through there at 90 miles an hour anymore. But they also have outdoor events to where it could extend there. We don't have that kind of, not that we're gonna have a Dora event when we have farmers market. You know, and again, you leave out one bar down here, which is kind of close to the school, which I would not think is good.
Well, we're gonna have a public library soon too.
Well, and that's where the public.
Right in the
library is,
middle
so,
of
you know,
all.
I guess it's something to
I
consider.
get a concern, but we can
I
discuss
think
it
there's
later.
concerns there that before we start, taking ideas for 2025 and how we want to do it. We're not the banks by any stretch of the imagination.
When we talk to like Harrison, because that's.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of.
To help with traffic and small business, because there's a lot of small businesses.
Yeah, I think all your thriving communities have adopted this, so I'll reach out to all of them as we advance it. So.
but I think that we can build our community, and I think we can do more events with our community.
No doubt.
And I think that's important. I think we need to build our community. I mean, we just need to. I reached out, I sent an email out to Dr. Justin and Kevin about some ideas that I had. And I think it'd be a good thing.
Come out and meet
Sure,
each other.
absolutely.
Yeah, and like many of our issues, I think that a town hall would be appropriate before we move forward. I can tell you just based off of the feedback that I've received from business owners, residents, it's been met with overwhelming support. I didn't petition them for an answer. They brought it up to me. So we'll definitely do our due diligence. And ultimately it'll have to be approved by the council. It's my job to bring these issues to you, community requests, and make sure that you have the information to make an informed decision when the time comes. Any other questions on that at this point?
So this is just strictly about alcohol consumption? Is that what this door is?
So a door is a designated outdoor refreshment area. Okay, so, by law, it's illegal to have an open container in the public. If a municipality adopts a DORA, it allows you within certain constraints to consume alcohol in public and walk on public sidewalks and roadways. So for example, if we had a concert, the way based off of some of Mr. Burns' vision for Cleves Commons, if we had a food truck outside Cleves Commons and local musician playing live music in the summertime in Cleves Commons, you could walk down to Ann's Tavern and get a Miller Lite. And you could walk out in a designated Dora cup and enjoy the festivities up at Cleves Commons. If you want to move on from there, you could walk down to East Road 407 and have dinner.
Is there somebody that watches the limitations of how many doors you decide to add?
So the Ohio Revised Code does limit
Before you
based.
know it, now you've got a whole group of people walking around Cleves that are half drunk.
So there are,
Potential.
there are legal constraints based on your population. It limits the amount of doors that you can. All right, we've talked about doors and income taxes, what else? What other hot buttons have I
That's
got?
really good.
Let me move on down this list. Also exploring
After
additional,
everybody's drunk, they won't vote against it.
also looked into some additional grant writing training with all of the grants that we seek to write. There is a course in February, that'll just provide some updated best practices and, you know, best practices for competitive submissions. So I'll continue to look into that. But I do think that's a course I'd like to attend in February, as we start writing multiple grants, just to have updated best practices. Been researching and requesting information regarding the fire contract proposal, which we discussed. Did receive an email back from Mr. Brett. I have more concerns and more questions after receiving that. At this point, we do have an extension through March of 2025, so it does give us a 3-month grace period or a current rate before we experience an increase. Yes, Mr. Walters.
So from the stats that I looked at, I don't know how extensive we want to get into this discussion. So, Guy, are we going to have an open discussion on this a little bit on the fire, post fire?
I'll report a little bit on it during my safety committee report, and we can discuss it further then.
Okay. So we will discuss some things about it. Okay, I'll leave it to you. I'm sorry.
No problem.
We also have, it sounds like we have 3 months to discuss it as well.
But this,
We don't have to do this all before Christmas, right?
no, at this point, we have, like I said, 3 months into 2025. But yet to have a date scheduled with Mr. Brett to sit down. He did respond to my initial email that everyone was CC'd on. I plan to respond to him kindly. There's some information that I want to verify before I do. And I'd like to schedule, you know, a sit down and formal negotiation process with Miami Township and their representatives.
I think not only yourself, but I think the mayor needs to be involved as well as council.
As their trustees as well.
As well as council. This one-on-one, I'm not for.
Which one are you representing?
If you're gonna sit down just by yourself with Miami Township, I'm not for that. I believe the mayor needs to be involved, and I believe the police council needs to be involved in that negotiation.
I think that was the purpose for me, courtesy copying everybody to keep everybody in the loop with information. I'll continue to respect those wishes as we proceed.
As chair of safety committee, I will attend any meetings that I possibly can. I do work during the day. I'm off on Mondays, if you want to keep that in mind. That's what anything is scheduled.
Off on Mondays?
Or, yeah, I'm off on Mondays, or if you do it like first thing in the morning, like 8 AM, then I could do that, just really more for me.
Keep that in mind as I proceed. Additionally, I've been working on the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office contract. We discussed that in Safety Committee and Finance Committee. We will experience a decrease over the next 3 years. It'll decrease from 295,000 this year down to 225 next year, and it'll gradually climb from there. We'll also discussed, drafted and submitted a memorandum of understanding with the Major Pediment after speaking with Sergeant Carney, just to formalize some communal areas in the municipal building that everybody seems to be on the same page with after our discussions. Also, the number of cruisers in the lot will decrease in the coming weeks, with the Sheriff's Office taking over the Addison contract as well. They're going to do some cruisers there. That should alleviate some of our overflow parking issues we've experienced. Been working and researching continued efforts towards the local authority, which we'll be discussing more in depth and voting on this evening. Law Director and I have been continuing our work on an ongoing human resources issue. Morgan Creek project is going well. As of this afternoon, they were near North Miami with clean out, and water is already running better, draining, so they will be finished with that this week. I have finalized my portion of an updated employee manual and the creation of a safety manual for the village. It's now with the law director for his final review. You should have that to me in the coming weeks, and I look to present it to the council in January for adoption.
We will get a preview ahead of time, so. we can
Yes,
Look at
as
it.
soon as the law director reviews it, make sure it meets legal muster, I will send it out to all council as much advance notice as I can so you can review it. Been working with the library and their contractors on the new South Miami development. At this point, they installed fencing for the construction project to commence in the near future. They're ready to demolish the South Miami building, the green building, on Monday. However, they're still waiting on Duke to cut off the gas and electric mains. Our waterworks department is going to go out early next week and shut off the water main. So you can expect to see that building come down and at least demolition start in the next week.
Can I bring something up about that green building? So that green building was the original Bank of Cleves. And I think the box is still out on front, like the alarm box is still on front of the building. Can you talk to them and when they demolish that building, if they could save that box and maybe give it to our museum or?
Absolutely.
Because that's a historical, a building is a historical part of Cleves.
Is it on the historical
The
record?
original Bank of Cleves actually back in the day produced its own currency.
Really?
So was it on the historical register?
Probably not.
No, if it was,
You may not
be able to
demolish
demolish
it.
it.
Too bad you can't pick it up and move it.
If you met with the contractors about a requirement on keep the streets clean,
I passed that off to our building inspector, Don Mercer, handles all of that. They did submit a fencing permit, and he's been working with them. The details of that I haven't completed, but I can reach out to Don and make
so
sure.
we need to make sure that when they start that project, that roads are swept up every night. So we're not tracking mud all over and other debris throughout the village every night.
They submitted a permit for fencing, but since it's a temporary fencing, they don't need.
But when the trucks come off, like concrete trucks and stuff like that, then they start falling
Temporary
down.
fencing that
Yeah.
goes around is more for safety, keeping folks out.
Good point.
I'm sorry, do they have a safe in it? With the bank?
I don't know if anything like that is still in the building, because over the years, it's been many different
The
businesses.
ideal is salvage as well.
When it was Reading Taxidermy, I was in there, I remember anything being in
You
there.
contact them and find out what's in there.
I just know that the box, the alarm box is on the outside. of the
Yeah.
building, so it's up right there in front. But something like that would be, I think would be worth selling.
Yeah, that's a good point. I have it on my list. I will reach out to them tomorrow morning. And then last but not least, I've been working with the law director on a new contract for 2025. And I will present that later this evening to discuss, take any feedback. Any other questions for me at this point?
We're going to be discussing your organization chart.
Rob, I do have that listed under my report here in the organizational chart. Leave a motion is all that's required to.
adopt it, yeah.
I think it's missing somebody.
I do have a question on it.
There's somebody on there twice and.
Where does that fit in on this?
That's what I was going to ask. There's somebody
You know,
else on there.
where's that at?
John's on there twice.
So I think, there's been many versions and edits of this. I do see where John's listed twice. Ed should be listed in that second block where Ed is.
Shouldn't Penny also answer to the mayor?
Where
John answers to the building.
No.
Oh, Penny. No, he usually
Sure.
goes to the village administrator.
That was just a question.
Fiscal officer to the mayor.
Yeah, so it looks like the one edit that would need to be made here, it's a formatting error, so. John Knupp is listed twice, our zoning and code enforcement officer would also fall under me. Again, this is printed just so you guys can visualize and conceptualize the, organizational chart I worked with the mayor to adopt. I can make that change and reprint it for you now, or move forward if I have.
I do have a quick question. Under waterworks, where, the technicians are listed under Rusty, does that mean he gives the, reviews or, and recommends to you, or, I mean, he's a field supervisor, but how far does the power extend in terms of the discipline or reviews?
So any supervisor in any department has the ability to make a recommendation for disciplinary action. And this will be formalized in our employee manual that comes out in January. So, Rusty would have the ability to recommend disciplinary action. He would also be involved in the annual review process for employees. But on a day-to-day basis, Rusty would handle their work orders or assignments. Through our software, whenever a work order comes in, whether it's a leaky fire hydrant or a water main break, or somebody believes that their meter reading was wrong, this comes print out in our software system, and Rusty assigns those to the water
So
technician.
does Pam then report to Rusty as well?
No, that Pam
Reports to you?
Pam and Russ, well, they both ultimately report to me through the superintendent, Eric. Pam is our administrative clerk. She's.
Yeah, I know, but it almost looks, this chart almost makes it looks like her and Rusty are, there's nothing
Same level.
connecting her to Eric or to you. That's the only reason. Just curious.
So, yeah, they both go through Eric.
Okay,
And you're right. they
and
are
then ultimately to you.
Yep.
Okay. Just curious.
And the bottom line is that there's 5 more employees that also fits in there, except for the one name that's on the bottom list right now.
Say that again.
The 2 names at the bottom. So if we get like 3 other technicians, they would be all at the bottom there.
Yes, correct.
On the parks flow chart, you should probably be listed on that as well about Daniel reports to you, correct?
I'm only, when you're looking at these departments, I'm only listed on waterworks because, of my duties.
Okay,
That allow me to operate as the administrator. If you go back to the first page, Daniel does report to me on the
Yeah.
administrative chart.
I just saw you on the waterworks one, so I didn't know.
Yeah, that's the only one that I'm listed on.
Okay.
That's just because of some of the Ohio.
That's fine.
requirements.
Okay, that's fine.
So basically, the only changes that need to be done is John needs to be removed off of one
And Ed would
And
take
Ed
his-
needs
and Ed put in.
correct.
We need a motion to accept those changes, then
Can we adopt this as first
You
reading?
need a motion to adopt the chart with the changes on it. And that we discussed. Betty, you've got that down in your minutes, correct?
Yes.
I'll,
So the changes are the second John Knuth is being removed and Ed Linda Schmidt's being put in. The Village of Cleves Organizational Chart Administration. And then under the Village of Cleves Organizational Chart for the waterworks, and the administrative clerk should be reporting to Eric, not Rusty. Correct?
Correct,
So
so.
that line between
I'll
her and
move that
Rusty
line
will be
to the middle.
removed, and there'll be a line from her to Eric.
Yes.
I'll make the motion with the revisions.
Second.
Motion to approve the organizational chart with the revision by Mr. Babel and second by Mr. Walters, correct? Is there any further discussion? Any call the roll, please?
Mr. Burns.
Yes.
Mr. Walters.
Yes.
Ms. Meyer.
Yes.
Ms. Meister.
Yes.
Mr. Babel.
Yay.
Ms. Bolton.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. I'll provide you a digital copy with the edits for your review.
You have anything else, Justin, in that? Not this point. Jerry, you want to go ahead with your,
Yeah, give me this one.
welcome, Kevin.
Fine. We decided not to be in this chair.
That's all right. We're sure now. I don't know that anybody's ever come to a meeting like.
You absolutely are.
You set the precedent.
The time was noted when you attended, you are legally here.
Huzzah.
We do have one more thing to come out of my
Thanks.
report, I apologize.
The handicap park.
We do have a residential handicap parking to address. Yeah. We have the residential handicap parking.
This is, yeah, right here. Everybody out in the audience, if you don't have one of these, somebody out there knows, you can work on that.
So this will be ordinance 15/2024 then?
Yes.
You want to give them the background as to why this is happening?
Sure, does everybody have in front of them?
Yeah.
This will be proposed as ordinance, this will be the first reading this evening. It's an ordinance to establish a process for residential handicap parking spaces on public roadways. We've had numerous requests to place handicap parking spaces on the roadway for handicap residents. And work with the mayor, we're looking to formalize a process to ensure that a space is needed, that there's not adequate off-street parking per person before we approve a handicap spot, especially with our limited parking in some of our subdivisions. Prior to my tenure, there were a few of these issues, and I think that it started a precedent. I had concerns with not having a process to approve those. Wanted to establish some sort of consistency and continuity in how we handle these requests as far as an application process and expectations when we do move to approve one. So that'll all be outlined in this ordinance. It would be the first reading of this tonight. This will be 3 readings.
Okay.
Can I state?
Any questions?
You made mention that proof of adequate off-street parking, but it's not mentioned in here. And that, because the reason is like, it's a safety, for instance, my wife and I both are considered handicapped. We got handicap plates. I live up in Westgate. I can put 4 cars in my driveway.
Right.
But I can also apply for 2 separate permits. And I could take two spots up on the street,
You have adequate parking in the
but
driveway.
it doesn't say that.
Well, so when we write the ordinance that we're going to adopt, first the codified language within that, I started with codified language, which will be in our basic code in our ordinance book, and it does discuss that there has to be a need for it. There's not adequate off-street parking. So when it
Your
comes
driveway is considered adequate off-street parking.
potentially, if your driveway is on a slope or an incline, and that makes it difficult for you, we want to stay flexible enough that this is case by case basis. We don't want to get so detailed in our ordinance that it doesn't leave area for consideration. I mean, we can't possibly cover every scenario in an ordinance.
What happens if let's use Harrison Avenue, for example, where there's no parking on one side of the street as you're coming up in North Bend. And someone wants to apply for a handicap. Is that a case by case?
Well, if there's not off-street parking offered on their roadway, we wouldn't have the ability to provide them.
It has to be an allowable parking situation. You can't invent all of a sudden parking on the other side if it's not.
We do then parking. We allow parking on sidewalks.
That's been stopped, Gary.
Just, I'm making my point, okay?
Is the permit assigned to the person, to the residence, to the address? What happens if a person ends up in a nursing home? Does that permit get revoked and you start all over? I mean, how do you?
The other thing to take into consideration along the same lines is if it's a rental property. If it's the person that's living there in the rental property, they may need it, but they may move out a month later, and then do we take it down? Is it, I mean, there's gotta be some.
That's
type
why
of
there needs to be a reapplication process. It can't just
Or
be a permanent
notification of
fixture with,
vacancy.
correct. So, to Mr. Babel's point, and in the codified version of this, section B3 doesn't address it under documentation. The applicant must provide documentation on a form prescribed by the village that no private or off-street parking space is available, which is sufficient to meet transportation needs. When off-street parking is available, the documentation must include a detailed diagram with measurements showing why on-street parking is preferable to the available off-street parking. To your point about applications, Ms. Bolton, that would be under section B4, which would be application parking permit.
Are we responsible for posting a sign, and if so, is there a fee involved? Do we have to post, how do we indicate that was a designated handicap?
Section C addresses the review. There's a biannual review of residential handicap parking spaces. Those are, the renewal fee shall be $20. The renewal request must be made 30 days in advance of the expiration. There is a cost with the signs, and any cost associated with the installation would be paid for by the requestee.
Okay,
Just like we did with our business out here, Body by Vendor. We had 2 signs installed that we approved for them. They paid for the signage, the pole, and the install. 2 signs was $260.
that's fine. I just wondered if it was
The
money
cost-
we were gonna have to.
It will not, any cost associated with installation will be rolled to the requester, as well as the process administrative time to handle the request.
So will the sign indicate that it is a space for the resident at 323 Westgate Drive? Or what is the sign? Because if my mother-in-law comes and she's handicapped, is she gonna be able to park in that space?
Well, it will not designate who can park there. It will just be a handicap spot. Now, we could assign a number to it that corresponds with their permit.
Sign the permit number.
We'll place a permit number on the sign,
Okay.
and assign a permit number
That's okay.
associated with it.
I would think that if they're gonna have to pay for the sign and that they're gonna have to fill out the paperwork, they're gonna have to redo it every 6 months. I can't imagine that a lot of people would wanna do this unless it's something that they absolutely did.
Correct, and that's why I wouldn't want someone that lives nearby to start parking in that spot, thinking it's just a general handicap spot.
Is this sheriff enforcement or marshal enforcement?
And so, I'll answer that question with this. If you go to violations, F1, it does designate that, no person shall park any vehicle other than the assigned vehicle within the boundaries of the assigned parking space. To your point, under the penalty section, whoever violates this will be guilty of a minor misdemeanor. It is a local ordinance, so it will be enforced by our local authority, shall that be approved.
Just the county sheriff wouldn't.
The sheriff would not. Now, there are Ohio Revised Code. The Ohio Revised Code does address handicap parking violations. I can't answer if the sheriff would extend that to residential handicap parking spaces, since residential handicap parking is not addressed in the Ohio Revised Code. That'd be a question for our owner.
The sheriff's office is going to cover it. They're going to have to differentiate who's parked there, if they have a handicap placard, or if they're permit holder by number, license, and they would have to be, they'd have to have the local information, and it wouldn't be based on your state. It's private and public lots used for public transportation. Correct.
So if somebody's parking down here, let's say, for example, in one of the businesses and it's a handicap,
They can cite that.
how we kind of can cite them then?
Yes. Because it's private property, but for public use, for public transit, if people come in and out. So they're required to have handicap spots by state law. So any law enforcement officer can cite those, and those are expensive.
Are we gonna require the permit number to be on display in the vehicle somewhere also?
That's something we can look to add, like door hangers or stickers. That's something we can implement.
The detail.
Sure.
You were reading here from the codified. I want to ask, what is going on with the ordinances? Are they codified as of yet, or are they still being?
That's not done yet.
Okay.
And it probably won't be for 2 to 3 months. It was a 6 to 7 month process.
Okay, I keep.
They're going over all of them to make sure that there's no contradictions, nothing's been passed that contradicts something that was already passed prior to, and giving us best practices based on case law and things that have come out since then on ordinance that aren't really good because of that.
Anything more you gotta do on this? Yeah, pretty sure you're gonna bring this back.
Well, we're basically voting just on a process at this
To establish.
to establish.
So the first reading,
That's what you just said.
Yes, sir.
So we're not voting on it tonight.
We don't.
Well, I think you approved the first reading. You have to have something in the records indicating that you did have a first reading and that it was voted on. That's how we used to do it. You vote on the first, second, and then the final one is adopted.
None of the documentation that I said, it has to be read.
Oh,
And
okay.
it can be read by title only twice, as long as members of council have it in front of them in written form on the third reading. Otherwise, you gotta read the whole. And then it gets voted on at that time.
But we don't need to vote on it now. Okay.
Okay.
We're gonna have.
There should be minutes that it has been read.
So
Yours.
Mhm.
we've assigned that ordinance 15 for that.
And it's a first reading.
We don't need to put a number on it.
Penny, we've assigned it 15. Penny, let's assign this ordinance 15 and we'll maintain that.
Okay,
So our next ordinance will be 16.
yes.
Do you have any other questions on this before we move forward?
Jerry, you want to go ahead?
Sure. All right. Here's that clock. The Village of Cleves Safety Committee met on December the 5th. Sergeant Carney gave the Hamilton County Sheriff's report. During the month of November 2024, there were 128 calls for service, bringing the year-to-date to 1,545. And there were 83 non-billable calls for service, bringing that year-to-date total to 1,039. There were 3 cases assigned to detectives for investigation. There were 6 criminal reports, 100 year-to-date. Those 6 consisted of 2 theft frauds, 2 burglaries, criminal damaging, disorderly conduct with intoxication, and telecommunications harassment. There were 7 non-criminal reports, 71 year-to-date. Those 7 consisted of an 80 case report, 2 medical emergencies, a missing person, a psych suicidal emergency, a found property, a vehicle fire, and a suicide. There were 6 auto accident reports, bringing the year-to-date total to 34. And there were 17 citations written, bringing the year-to-date total to 126. We discussed the Route 50 and Cooper Avenue accident data, which Sergeant Carney did not have available. He is supposed to get that and present it at the next meeting. There was no fire report. There was no one present from Miami Township. Under old business, the AED training, Administrator Haber is still working on coordinating that. It looks like it's going to cost $30 per person, which the village and the waterworks will cover for their staff respectively. First part of the training will be online, and then the remaining portion will be in person. The date is yet to be determined. Regarding our speed signs on North and South Miami, the village administrator had been presented data for each sign. Going to continue to provide the monthly report and we're going to look for trends, see if there is anything to be addressed or if the police department needs to sit in any specific areas to monitor. Regarding the Village of Cleves Emergency Response Plan that Mr. Babel is working on, there was no progress to report. He did report that he's still waiting to hear back from Mr. Crosby. The employee handbook, Mr. Handy's already mentioned that. I'm going to skip that part now. Regarding the Miami Township Fire Service contract, we discussed that. Mayor Buckles provided the safety committee with amounts that the Village of Cleves has paid for fire and police for the years of 2020 through the current. He also provided a spreadsheet from Hamilton County Dispatch containing fire, EMS, and police run numbers for 2024 that were broken down by jurisdiction in the month. We discussed the need for more detailed information from Miami Township Fire Department justifying the significant increase, which equated to a 61.3% increase with the new contract. We expressed dissatisfaction with the township's vague justifications without supporting numbers and the lack of involving police administration in any discussions prior to the contract proposal. Finance Committee had previously suggested that the village administrator, Mr. Haynig, scheduled a collaborative meeting with North Bend and Addison officials to discuss proposed increases, see if they have the same concerns regarding lack of evidence-based information being provided, see where each committee stands on the matter. He is, as he reported, he's currently working on that. The Hamilton County Sheriff's contract also been touched on already. We did discuss that. The numbers are going down, and that has to do with the Village of Addison joining. So now it's the Village of Addison, Cleves, North Bend, and Miami Township collaboratively referred to as the Western District. It's a 2-year contract covering January 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2027, with the expectations of significant increases thereafter due to currently being subsidized from Hamilton County. New business, we did discuss possibly changing the day of the meeting to later in the month to allow the police and fire departments more time to compile their reports and stats, but that change would create another issue of the safety committee report to council being 2 months in arrears, and chair expressed opposition to that. They also discussed the 2025 safety committee meetings continuing the first Thursday of each month, but changing the time, moving it back to 7 p.m. There was discussion regarding reestablishing the local law enforcement capabilities in the Village of Cleves in order to enforce zoning violations and reestablish mayor's court. This has previously been discussed at the November Safety Committee meeting. It was discussed at the Finance meeting in November as well. Village Administrator Hagan reported the projected cost to be $60,000 to $62,000 annually, which would include all aspects of the village marshal position and mayor's court costs. The need and the purpose of this is so that the village has the ability to enforce our local ordinances, including the ability to cite civil violations of non-compliance with those ordinances to mayor's court. It's necessary to reestablish the local authority referred to as the Cleves Police Department in order to have an originating agency identifier, ORI. The ORI is given by the Ohio Attorney General and is required in order to access computer programs, reports, etc., that are restricted to law enforcement. The Village of Cleves currently has an ORI, but it has been inactive since closing the police department in 2020. The village marshal will not be functioning in any capacity that interferes or conflicts with the contract of services provided by the Hamilton County Sheriff's Department. The Sheriff's Department will continue to provide police service and protection. The village marshal will be a certified peace officer in the state of Ohio, be identified as such, and carry a firearm, but will not be wearing typical law enforcement attire, but rather business casual. The village administrator is to prepare the ordinance, which will be brought before council tonight. I have that ordinance and I would like to read it in its entirety. And then if anybody has any questions about it, we can discuss it.
Is this a first reading or is it gonna be passed?
We're gonna be doing
With
this,
an emergency?
we're gonna suspend the rules on this.
Okay, that's what I,
Are those your elves?
That's my wife.
All right, so this is will be number 16.
Yes.
So ordinance 16/2024.
not 14, like.
Where is it? Moved?
Ordinance to establish a local authority focused on enforcement village
I
ordinances.
don't think on this.
It says ordinance number 14.
There was some reprinting that occurred. If you have one that I should I'll bring it up now. Moving forward, in the past, we've assigned numbers to it as we've established our agenda. With the fluid nature of our agenda, I've recommended that we no longer assign numbers to these beforehand.
Right,
We'll assign them as we vote on them. So this will be the last meeting that we have any issues like that. From now on, they'll be blank.
we used to have a blank line and then we filled it in.
And that's what we'll be moving towards moving forward. Fluid nature of our agenda and the updates last.
I agree.
So
So
if you
which
want,
number is this one?
So
it'll
this
be
will be
16.
Okay,
All right, Village of Cleves, Hamilton County, Ohio, ordinance number 16/2024. Ordinance to establish a local authority focused on the enforcement of village ordinances and zoning violations. Whereas the Village of Cleves has been unable to enforce village ordinances and to address a multitude of complaints from residents regarding quality of life issues, and whereas the village disbanded the local authority in 2020 and has been unable to remedy many village issues governed by local legislation since. And whereas village officials researched extensively for a resolution to this problem. And whereas the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office is the law enforcement entity to the village and provides police service and protection in which is necessary. And whereas the Sheriff's Office is unable to enforce local ordinances. And whereas discussions have occurred with knowledgeable people and persons in the field, including the Sheriff's Office. And whereas the village has determined there is a need for a local law enforcement authority to service the residents of Cleves and respond to complaints regarding local legislative laws. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the Village of Cleves, Ohio, to establish a local authority focused on enforcing ordinances, community outreach, and addressing quality of life issues while maintaining all required and responsibilities as a peace officer in the state of Ohio to ensure public safety and community well-being. Section 1, to reestablish the local authority referred to as the Cleves Police Department. Section 2, the local authority will not act as the primary law enforcement authority or oversee calls for service, patrols, or duties assigned to the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office. However, they may provide support in emergencies or exceptional circumstances, ensuring their authority and scope remain preserved. Section 3, the local authority will collaborate closely with the Sheriff's Office, serving as a valuable resource for addressing complaints or calls for service deemed to be of local nature, fostering a cooperative and harmonious relationship between the two agencies. Section 4, the village shall appoint a marshal consistent with Ohio Revised Code 737.15. To ensure effective leadership and continuity, the current village administrator shall be appointed to the marshal to provide experienced oversight and strategic direction for the appointed agents in alignment with the village's goals and priorities. Section 6, I think this is a typo, this should be section 5, because it's following 4.
correct.
This ordinance shall take effect at the earliest date allowed by law. And we would like to read this by title only, pass it as an emergency.
No.
All suspend the rules and read by title only.
I have some questions. before we-
Yeah, so discussion and open for discussion and questions.
So when this was originally proposed, we all talked about it individually. This went from 50,000 now to 62,000.
So that is up to 62,000. That would include all costs for the village marshal position, all costs for mayor's court. We have designated specific number of hours for that position, whether that be one person fulfilling all of those hours or us having two persons to fulfill those hours. So all of that cost combined is what came up with that.
I thought it was still, when we looked at it in finance, it was still around 50, I thought. So I am curious how it ended up.
12,000.
So there was a combination made where we rolled in the costs associated with the local authority and mayor's court and all associated costs with the prosecutor, the magistrate. In year one, we had the upfront costs associated with the purchasing of required equipment, which brings us to not to exceed 60,000.
And that's where the 62,000 came from, was that first year.
What equipment are we purchasing?
Computer.
Well, there has to be a computer for mayor's court, software, court management systems, uniforms, identification, a radio.
So when we talked about this again, well, let me bring up the next question, and not if you ask your questions too, but we go back to section 1. To reestablish the local authority referred to as the Cleves Police Department. We're not reestablishing the Cleves Police
We
Department.
are not reestablishing the Cleves Police Department, but it is going to be referred to as the Cleves Police Department because they have to have that ORI, the originating agency identifier. And by having that, then that allows them to have the computer to be able to access things that are only accessible by law enforcement.
Don't you think there's going to be some kind of conflict there where you've got Cleves Police Department, and Hamilton County Sheriff?
It's
We're
gonna
gonna
cause
have
some confusion.
Are we going to have residents call Cleves Police Department? We've got a Cleves Police Department.
The individual appointed to that position will be the village marshal.
So why don't we call it some kind of town marshal or ordinance enforcement agency, something of that nature? I think you're gonna set a bad precedent that you're gonna.
Can you clarify that in regards to the ORI and why we can't change that?
Right, so it really has to do with legal language associated with the Ohio Revised Code. You have to be appointed as a peace officer, and as such, you have to have authority, local authority as a police department. While the scope of this agency will be to enforce local ordinances, they do have law enforcement powers as a peace officer in the state of Ohio, and they have to be appointed by a police chief or by a police department. There's what doesn't apply to us. There's certain hospitals have public safety departments. The only applicable law enforcement arm for the village of Cleves is a police department.
We can educate our residents though, as to how it is different than a fully functioning community police department, correct?
We did our best with the literature in this ordinance to highlight that the patrol authority and the primary authority remains the sheriff's office. To one point made, how is this going to occur? We did have Sergeant Carney present at our safety committee. He had no questions or concerns. Major Kedeman was aware of it when we had our conversation yesterday. And additionally, this isn't something new for the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office. They're quite familiar with working with other agencies. For example, they did it for a number of years in Cleveland Township, Coleraine, and other areas that don't come to mind at this point.
And that was essentially even a different thing because, for lack of a better term, the Cleves officers will not be on the board, meaning they will not be on the board to get radio runs, to answer radio runs. They will be notified by the sheriff's office should something creep into the local ordinance and something that the sheriff's office cannot deal with.
Section 2 here says they're gonna provide support in emergencies or exceptional circumstances.
If the sheriff's office requests any help from the Cleves officers and they need it, that would be,
So an extreme circumstance would be
A natural disaster.
That chemical
shooter
storm.
at the school, and the Hamilton County knows that our officers here and request their assistance. That would
In this-
be only.
in the safety meeting, Carney made the statement that he was trying to figure out a way that they use the local authority in that respect to come down here, but they're too busy in other areas doing the same thing, because he said he was trying to figure out how to get the ordinances, enforced, and thought it was a good idea.
I don't have a real problem with it being called that. I would just say you should send a informative letter to every resident in the village through the mail that outlines this and gives them a number they can call to answer more questions. It clearly states what the function's going to be to try to avoid confusion. Like I said, I didn't want this marshal to be called a police chief because I thought that contributed to the confusion. I think it needs to be a town marshal and referred to as such. I think we can educate our residents. If we need that name in order to have the ORI review, I don't have a problem moving forward.
And that would be the only purpose of using the name the police department is because of that ORI. We already have one identified.
If we changed it, we'd have to apply for an ORI again under a different name.
There's nothing else, based on my knowledge, there's nothing else we could apply for to grant us law enforcement authority in our municipality.
Like I said, I don't have a problem with it as long as we educate our residents.
Well, then you talk about being armed. And again, we're looking at enforcing ordinances. So are you gonna show up at somebody's door with a gun on your hip that says, cut your grass? This is where I have some limitations on what it is you're trying to establish here.
Well, he's not the zoning. He would only be
You're gonna-
going if someone wasn't.
This is to enforce zoning and ordinances, okay? So if you can't go up there and write a letter that says, if you don't cut your grass, or if you don't move your truck, or if you don't do this because of ordinances,
But they're gonna be responding to gunshots, they're
It's
gonna be
my-
responding to any ordinance we might have.
It's my understanding that the town marshal, he won't be doing the regular routine, going in and giving somebody a letter that they need to cut their grass. Town marshal will come into play when somebody's non-compliant.
and that's what I'm saying.
When Ed's done all of his part, done everything he can, and they're non-compliant, and they need to be cited to mayor's court. Town marshal would be the one to give the citation, citing them to mayor's.
Because he didn't cut his grass and he shows up with a gun on his head.
So I think that's one scenario, but I've talked to thousands of people wearing a firearm, and I don't believe that inherently poses a threat to somebody. To your point, with grass cutting, and as we spoke individually on, that could either be addressed by a civil zoning citation or it's a criminally codified ordinance.
And yes, we've talked about this, Justin, and I've shared those same complaints, have I not?
I think that maybe that situation you present provides a tone to it, as if we're some Gestapo force. By no means is that what we're trying to accomplish here. What we're trying to accomplish is the ability to enforce our local ordinances. And if we have to go knock on a door and give a citation for tall grass or weeds, so be it. But I do think that to remain reasonable and prudent, we can't expect a peace officer to perform any duties when they're not armed to defend themselves.
Anymore, you knock on a door, you don't know what's gonna answer on the other side.
And to that point, as they aid the zoning enforcement officer, as Ed goes out to many nuisance properties, generally speaking, there's other issues at hand when you're responding to a nuisance property. Commonly, he responds with the sheriff's office to do that. This would just be an extension of that. So for example, if our zoning enforcement officer was to respond to a nuisance property, it may also have drug trafficking concerns or whatever else it may be. I think it's reasonable to assume that any law enforcement officer would be armed and identified as a peace officer.
Don't you think drug trafficking incidents would be handled by Hamilton County Sheriff?
It's not about them handling the drug trafficking. It's about them walking into a property where a multitude of things are going on and they don't know why you're there. So to have someone that's identified as Cleves zoning enforcement and whatever by uniform or whatever, you do not want to be out in public walking into those situations without having stuff at your disposal to prevent it.
So is it uniformed or not? Because I thought we said no, but then I
It will
heard
not
yes.
be a typical police uniform, and they won't be wearing SWAT gear, they won't be wearing a vest, they won't have the whole gun belt with the taser and everything else. It's just simply they can carry a gun.
Justin,
You
when
can
you
walk
were
down the
out there,
street and anybody that's got a concealed carry permit can have a gun on their hip.
Not being concealed carry either.
but you talked about putting the vests on them and their full body armor that we talked about. That's my opinion.
I did discuss, assigning officers, with protective equipment, with ballistic.
So don't sit there and shake your head and tell me, no, we didn't discuss it.
I didn't sit there and shake my head at anything, Mr. Walters. Do you
Let's
have a
keep
question
this
for
civil,
me?
please.
That's what I asked you. Did we not talk about that?
We did
say
discuss
we
it.
discussed
And to answer that question, Mr. Walters, I did say that they would be
Mr. Walters now
identified.
is here
I
before.
did say that they'd be identified as law enforcement. There's a difference in them wearing a tactical vest or being dressed as a SWAT officer and wearing some type of soft uniform like a golf polo that addresses them as an officer. And with that, just like you would require a hard hat for a construction worker, I think that it's reasonable that a peace officer would have a ballistic armor.
We don't require Ed to have anything.
He's not a peace officer.
He wears a badge. He has a badge on his
Fire department personnel wear a badge,
authorized fire department.
and he's authorized as a code enforcement officer.
So I have a question. So it says here in section 4 that the current village administrator would be the marshal. So would it be someone who is like, so that would be you, am I correct? Correct.
But that's the plan. That's
So not an officer? Not,
He's the marshal.
You need to tell her what you are.
yeah, this is where maybe I just don't know.
If he's the marshal, he is a police officer. He is a police officer, in addition to being.
Okay, so yeah, so that's, yeah.
The village of Waynesville has the exact same setup. Okay,
What's good about Justin is that he's a former police officer,
Okay, so that's just where I didn't know.
and that's what facilitated him becoming part of the administration.
And a current, he still carries, he's still.
He's still a peace officer,
Yeah,
which was the idea of bringing him on as administrator.
correct.
I think the scope of this whole thing is if you have a police officer, marshal or a police officer comes to the front door, Ed's gonna be doing his due diligence to get this person to comply. So it's like, kind of like a wake up call, like we've done what we're supposed to do. Now you need to do what you're supposed to do and we're here to enforce the rule.
So does this facilitate being able to levy fines on the property taxes if they're not being paid, or are they gonna show up then and say, pay up?
It depends on if it's a criminal violation or a zoning violation that we can assess the property tax. If it's covered in the ORC as criminal statute, a minor misdemeanor or above, it carries a criminal fine and criminal sanction. So that's, you don't assess those to property tax. But there's all these things that you have been adamant about being able to enforce.
Correct.
And there's a lot of those ordinances that you have to be a peace officer to enforce. So when Ed gets to the end of his road, the sheriff's office can't back him up and take care of it for him. If we have a local authority as peace officers, they can. So you can hold people responsible and accountable.
Do we limit the scope of this then to the police department then for criminal ones versus civil?
We'll go back through, and maybe this was recently discussed at the safety committee.
I want to be part of the safety committee.
Understood. And so I'll reiterate it just as information to everybody in attendance. So the sheriff's office may be dispatched to a call for service, which could be discharging a firearm, which is not a violation of the Ohio Revised Code, but is in violation of the Ohio Basic Code, our local ordinances that we've adopted. Likewise, a complaint could come in civilly through our zoning department for tall grass or weeds. So these zoning violations and code enforcement ordinance violations are intertwined, but they're still separate. If we determine it's a civil infraction or violation, that would run through Ed's department. Now, since there's oftentimes when there's nuisances and zoning violations that are civil, there may also be ordinance violations criminally. So that's why we work in harmony with one another. And back when the police department existed, that's why zoning and code enforcement fell under the scope of the police chief and police department. If it's a civil violation for zoning, Ed will handle it. If it comes to the point where a citation has to be filed on the person, they would then go to the Board of Zoning Appeals, which will convene immediately after mayor's court. If it's an ordinance violation, a criminally codified ordinance that we have in our Ohio Basic Code, that would be cited by one of our peace officers, and that person would then either pay out a citation or have a mandatory appearance to our magistrate and mayor's court. So if it's criminal in nature, they would be cited by a peace officer, they'd go to the mayor's court. If it's civil in nature, it would be handled by Ed, our zoning and code enforcement officer, and they would go to the Board of Zoning Appeals to have the case.
And the sheriff's department will be referring certain things to our police marshal, correct?
So basically,
If that happens during their,
Correct.
yes, so if the sheriff's office were to respond out there was a complaint for shots fired, right? And the sheriff's office responds out at this point, they determine that there's no other underlying cause. There was no culpability to commit a crime or to threaten somebody, menace somebody, or assault somebody, or harm them. It's not a violation of the Ohio Revised Code. However, in the village of Cleves, the boundaries of Cleves, with our home rule authority, we have an ordinance that prevents anyone from discharging a firearm for any reason. That's not covered by the Ohio Revised Code, so the sheriff's office cannot cite it. And that's part of our problem. If we move to adopt this, we would work with the sheriff's office for them to notify us when these type of events happen. They would say, we responded to a shots fired incident yesterday evening. It wasn't a violation of the ORC, but they did discharge the firearm. They would refer it to us. One of our officers would respond out, investigate it, and determine if charges were warranted. If we did cite them, they'd have a mandatory court appearance to mayor's court, or a fine or other punishment would be imposed.
So Ed had, just for a little clarification, if Ed was gonna issue a citation and he felt uncomfortable doing it, could he have the marshal doing that?
Many times our civil zoning violations are often also addressed by a criminal ordinance section of it. Like a traffic ticket, they might be minor misdemeanors, so they don't carry jail time. It's like getting a parking ticket, but you do have to have law enforcement authority to cite that. So to that point, if he doesn't feel comfortable, and even if he did feel comfortable, if it's a repeat offender or there's other issues, we may elect to cite that criminally because we have an enhanced ability to bring somebody into compliance when it's a criminal violation versus zoning. If it's a zoning violation, somebody says, we're not going to fix it, we're not going to show up to your court. The worst that we can do is mediate it ourselves and hope that and assess it for their property taxes and hope they pay the taxes and we get reimbursed. If we were to cite it criminally and somebody doesn't show the court, well, now they capious on an official summons and they have a warrant for their arrest. And likewise, they could have a warrant block on their registration or their driver's license suspended, things of that nature.
Once you cite them criminally, what does Hamilton County do now, if anything? So, I mean, in other words, like you said, you could issue a capious. Would say Hamilton County or anybody other district ignore that because
this really goes back to the ORI and our ability as a law enforcement agency to do those type of things. If somebody capious or a warrant was issued for them, not only would the sheriff's office have the ability to see that, but any law enforcement agency would. So if they were driving their vehicle down the road, and they had a warrant for arrest, they could be stopped, their vehicle could be impounded, they may have to pay a bond. and be cited to a new court date.
So,
What's KPS?
The KPS
We
is,
should-
not appearing for a court date.
No, it's squeaks.
So if you discharged a firearm and we came out to your house and issued you a citation, say it's 21 days after today, and you say, Kevin, you have to respond January 3rd to mayor's court. It's an official summons, please sign as acknowledgement. You can summons the court on January 3rd. If you don't appear to that official summons, you would have a KPS, which means you didn't comply with a lawful summons to appear in court, and you have a warrant for your arrest.
Essentially a bench warrant, I take it as a thing.
Basically, we're not gonna take you to jail, but you're gonna have to pay a bond to ensure your appearance, and you're gonna have to sign, his acknowledgement for a new court order.
so it says, so you'll be the marshal, like, as this gets started, but will later on down the road, there be somebody else appointed to it, or will the village administrator always have to be a peace officer so that, like, how does that work?
There certainly could be somebody to serve in that role, in the future. At this point, I think the reason that I was considered is because of the budget constraints that we face, and the fact that I'm able to do it for a much lesser rate, than somebody else.
Which then could be, so moving forward, let's say, for whatever reason, you're no longer in this position, then how does that get funded, or where?
Well, there's gonna be an additional officer, correct? You aren't gonna be the only one. There will be.
No, I won't be,
There's gonna be a
Well, he'll be the
part-time.
marshal in charge of the officer, so what happens when he's
Yeah,
no longer in that capacity?
well, one of those officers could be assigned as the marshal.
Appoint a new marshal.
And we could do that right off the bat if you had somebody qualified for it. But if we're starting it up brand new, and it just makes sense to have them.
But it would cost more money than moving forward.
So this then covers my angst of covering the ordinances and.
It gives you teeth, it gives you teeth that Ed doesn't have, and he can't use the sheriff's office to do, because it's local ordinance. So it gives you avenues to get something enforced. And get compliant.
Thank you.
It gives us an opportunity to enforce our local ordinances, which was taken away from us. So I don't anticipate that we're gonna have a 3-hour docket. You know,
Have you seen our backlog?
the appeals board might, but I'm talking criminal stuff.
Well,
But at least it gives us an ability to move forward and to enforce our own ordinances. So,
I do worry though about it being called the police, which I think there needs to be clear delineation. If nobody else sees an issue with that, I have no issue.
Well,
Well, we can't get the alarm for that. So.
I initially thought that up as well, but because when you can get ORI, there's really no other way, there's no way around that.
It's gotta be like that, it's gotta be.
We just have
There's
to
some
educate.
confusion in that discussion. Is it because of the name of Cleves Police Department, or is it because we have a vestigial legal identity still belonging to the village that has?
That's the ORI, it's an agency identifier, so it goes by county, then your second 2 digits, and the state issues those to departments that have certified.
So if our original service was named the Cleves Banana Pushers, that would be the appropriate thing to call
Banana
it.
pushers.
There was a sign
But
to
it
that.
happened to be called the Cleves Police Department.
This comes down to the Ohio Revised Code in your, I believe it's in Title 7 of the Ohio Revised Code. Just like the head of a law enforcement agency in a village is referred to as the town marshal, the law enforcement authority is referred to as a police department.
Yeah, Indian Hill had issues when they named themselves the Rangers. They went through a process.
So based off of the language in the Ohio Revised Code, Ohio, we have the ability with federal authority to have a local law enforcement arm, and that's referred to as a police department, just like the head of our law enforcement agency is referred to as a town marshal. That's how we derive our authority.
You all put up with a lot of my angst and gripes and questioning, but it's well worth it.
Gives us the ability to enforce
That's all I
our
ever
local
wanted.
ordinances,
It's about,
and without it, we have no
We were
authority.
telling
to
that
do
right,
so.
take 9 months.
it's a long time in coming. I've been very impatient, no doubt. But I appreciated that we pressed forward.
You impatient? Gary and I have had a discussion. In
You wanna bring
the-
your, am I allowed to ask you a question?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not alone. I feel like we're sneaking Justin being appointed to this, into this, like, in all our discussions in finance, Justin was not. It was another employee. And I'm concerned that that's part of the ordinance. I know ordinances, you just pass another one or whatever, but why are we writing in the village administrator, the current village administrator, not the village administrator? Like, that's not a durable, functional way to conduct the filling of this position.
Well, I think because, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but I'll take a stab at it. I think that because Justin is an Ohio peace officer, and when he applied for the administrator, he felt, at least in my mind, that was a segue, being able to kill two birds with one stone. You had an administrator, but you could also then do what we're doing now. And he is that particular segue and gives us that ability versus going out looking for someone of his caliber to do that.
So, in what Kevin's asking, section 4, can it simply read, the village shall appoint a marshal consistent with Ohio Revised Code 737.15? Can we take out that next sentence that says, to ensure effective leadership and continuity, the current village administrator shall be appointed? Does it have to say in the ordinance who we're appointing?
I would think so.
You don't, well, so the only reason it's in there is actually just so you didn't have to do another ordinance,
Appointing.
appointing him,
So-
if that was gonna be done
So what if-
anyway.
What if down the road, Justin's not with us? Then will this ordinance, what if what if he leaves? We have a new village administrator that's not a peace officer.
Well, just like the
Then would this
ordinance
have to be
that we
rewritten?
passed to retain the village administrator,
Yeah,
we do the same thing to replace the town marshal.
okay,
So it's a change to the norm. I mean,
okay.
so that is current as of December 11th, 2024. If we're talking about January 5th of 2026, yeah, I mean, you have to replace it. I mean, you're gonna pass another ordinance to do that. This way, if it was passed and the plan that was developed to keep this feasible monetarily and be able to do it, Justin has made that plan at the request of Mr. Walters and put that all together. So instead of coming back in January and putting, another ordinance on to get the ball rolling on this, if we don't do both things at the same time, then you will make no forward progress up until at that point, because nobody's gonna do it.
To Mr. Burns' other point, I don't want it to appear that we tried to slip something through. I was asked for a way to do this within our financial constraints, and so when I developed a strategic plan that's been disseminated to everybody, I developed that in October, and so if you refer to page 5 or section 8 of that, in paragraph 3, it does say to ensure proper oversight and coordination, the village will appoint the village marshal. If you move on to page 7, who will be hired? Sentence 3, the village administrator will serve as the village marshal, overseeing the ordinance officers and coordinating efforts with the sheriff's office. I just didn't want there to be confusion that something was trying to be slipped through.
What he's referring to right now is not in your consent.
I was gonna say,
I believe it's our strategic plan that was disseminated to Mr. Walters for his approval first, and then it moved to safety committee and finance. You're probably the only kind of person to see that it started. I can get you a copy of it.
So, on me for not having read that, I assume I did get a digital copy of it at some point, but I didn't really have it finally. So, what are we doing here? Like, so all this specifies is that in this instance, I heard your discussion, I heard your solution for if there's a change to Justin or to finding another person to do this work. It's just another ordinance. I understand that that's not a importantly difficult obstacle to overcome. Again, it is weird to be doing it this way. I don't like doing it. And it's also strange that the terms of his contract aren't in here either. Right? Justin was not hired at his salary to go door to door delivering subpoenas or arresting people.
But there's an additional fee, and I think that
And
needs to be addressed in another ordinance anyway. What is that person gonna be compensated for?
You know, that ahead of time.
That was outlined in the rate plan as well.
So,
Yeah, but it's not outlined here. I see what Kevin's saying.
So normally, like when we hire somebody and we do an ordinance to hire somebody at such and such a salary or such and such rate. So does that need to be added into this?
I would,
Or should we
Want it to
separate
be
it and do
separate.
it as two separate ordinances?
because you could also then list
So should we do one
additional
ordinance
part-time ordinance
establishing?
and, officers and what their rate would be.
If you wanna, pass the ordinance without that section in there, that's fine. But the fact that the ordinance is going forward, logistically, and you can do more research at moving forward, that would have been not feasible to do prior to knowing if it was gonna go pass at all.
it was my understanding, the fact that Justin he wasn't going to be issuing subpoenas or going door to door. He is the oversight as he is the administrator. This is just part of his administrative duties as well. I was of the impression
That's correct.
that all of you had talked about this before.
It came up in finance.
Okay,
There is a fee involved though with these extra duties.
correct, and I thought that was all baked into the 62,000, or was originally 50,000.
Yeah, but it's not stated in here specifically what his,
Yeah.
he will be compensated. I think
Does
that's
that need
what's
to be in
Kev,
the-
I
does
think
that
that's
need to be
what's
in the ordinance?
Kevin's question.
We could do an ordinance laying all of that out. Once, I mean, because to do it prior to this being passed or is what's impossible.
Does it
Because
behoove
the-
us to have a fire marshal name in this ordinance? Do we have to do it in order to move forward?
No, I said we can take that out.
Okay.
We can take that out and but more, progress can be made toward making this happen if the ordinance is passed.
Is it like if we pass this ordinance, is it automatically increase his salary at the
No.
day we pass it? We still
because-
have to,
Hang on.
Get to the point to where this can be a progress, making progress with it. I mean, because certain things that we would have had to dig into, in, reestablishing the activity of the ORI and all the stuff you have to do to get there, we wouldn't have done prior to this being passed, because that would have been, I mean,
right.
essentially a waste.
Is there any reason why, if you go ahead and do that, you can't create another ordinance tonight, address the concerns that Kevin's talking about, Brenda's talking about?
Yeah, if there's an agreement as to what they want the ordinance to say.
Oh, if you pull the current village administrator out of the language, then when we go to readdress this, if Justin's no longer with us, we're gonna have to mess with this ever again. Because then all we gotta do is whoever the new marshal is,
They point to
And
the
the
marshal,
pay
do
rate
an ordinance,
will
appointing that person.
all in that ordinance, but we'll still have a policy in place that we have a marshal. So we
And
wouldn't have to
authorized
mess
the
with this again.
So section 4 will read, the village shall appoint a marshal consistent with Ohio Revised Code 737.15. Everything after that will be taken out. And then we will have to do a second ordinance, and we don't have to do it tonight, we can do it next month, appointing our village administrator as to the position of the marshal, and we can specify
His compensation.
compensation in that ordinance.
I would feel comfortable with that. I don't know if that addresses any of Kevin's.
I got one point left on that.
Okay.
I think that's all good progress. And they think this is in no way a suggestion of any lack of faith, but strategically, we hired him to do a hard, lots of hours job with the village administrator, negotiated the terms of what work will be done there and the costs. And so forth. And in general, I'm not thrilled with this practice of, okay, well, somebody does one job, let's give them another job. Because, or so they're doing a job and a half. Because, like a real human has finite hours and effort they can effectively be addressing the issues that are part of their job responsibility. So, you know, and forgive me, it's my fault I didn't read that part of the strategic planning carefully. I apologize. But is it our judgment that whatever the additional compensation and more important, the additional hours, are we still getting what we want out of our employees? So if there's 60,000 in there, some of that's equipment and let's say some
That
tens of
includes all
thousands.
the cost of running a mayor's board as well.
Okay.
I think, I understand your concern there, but I think the hours that Justin will be doing this is minimal. It's not like we're putting a duty on him that's going to, take 20 hours a week, that's going to interfere with his ability to do his other stuff. And when we hired him as the village administrator, one of the things that was on our radar that needed to be addressed was planning and zoning. And this is all part of that. This will give us the ability to enforce our local ordinances.
And I met with Justin. I asked him if this would take significant amount of his time away from either the water or the administration of the village. And while we are asking him to do more, it's minimal. I really do, Kevin, and I see your concerns and I respect your concerns, and it's one of mine as well. I think as Justin gets well-rounded in the management and the administration of Cleves, things become a lot easier for him. He took this position with a host of issues facing us, with the FEMA, a host of things where he's put an inordinate amount of time. We said that because of that, we would give him time off in some cases. That's true statement, where we said if he's working 90 hours, we'd forgive a day or here or there. I believe we talked about that. But where I want to go with this is when I met with him and we talked about this, because I shared those same concerns with him as far as the tactical lessons of how is this going to impose more hours on. He assured me that it's no more different than if you're managing another division, so to speak, where we're not putting captains and lieutenants, any of that nature. It's a strictly a report up type thing where he's available for the Ohio Revised Code and meeting those principles, so to speak. If it's a few hours here or there, which I'm sure it is. Again, Justin, we talked about it. Where did you kind of end up with it, if you wanted to expand upon it? Because I don't want to answer to you.
There will be a lot of upfront time associated with getting it running, the department running, the training of the officers, also implementation of policies and procedures. I would serve as to validate reports, investigate any complaints, and also to meet the legal requirements as the head of a law enforcement agency in Ohio. So
Complaints on the office.
Complaints that may arise on officers, yes. As far as any mandated reporting from a law enforcement agency in the state of Ohio.
But you have to use some kind of a basis to come up with a compensation. So clearly, if you've got an amount in mind, you know about how many hours you think you're going to need.
It's hard to say how many hours it's going to take to get this thing off the ground and running. A couple hundred hours to get it off the ground and running on a continual basis. I would say 2 to 3 hours a week to validate communicate with sheriff's office, delegate work, verify and validate reports from the officers, and my attendance at the mayor's court every month. So, you know, you figure 3 or 4 hours weekly to manage the department, in addition to 5 hours monthly to prepare for mayor's court and present cases and testify and things of that nature.
If, I would just suggest if this additional money is listed as your salary, that we look at the breakdown to make sure that the waterworks isn't covering, you know, right now they pay 40%. If we raise your salary up, then their 40% is gonna go up. I wanna make sure that that doesn't.
Why can't that be paid separately? That's like, almost like a stipend.
Well, they can maybe, that's what I'm,
Right now, it's a separate check.
and it comes out of the general fund, but it's gonna be, pensionable. It's gonna, you know, yeah, no, that's fine if you can do that, I just
I
suggested.
think from the standpoint of what I've seen him putting in time with the water department right now, he's giving them well above 40%.
Well, that's fine, I'm
Right
just
now,
saying
I'm
down
not
the
saying it's
road.
gonna stay that way. What I'm saying right now, the issues he's had to deal with, he's put an awful lot of time in that area. And, I'm not worried about the water department, which I would be worried if it was the old figure, 60% out of the water department, 40% for the village.
Well, I just wanna make sure our waterworks isn't paying for our town marshal, that's all, and however you have to do it, you do, you know,
I just
wanna make sure that they're.
Yeah, you can have a separate, compensation.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, you can, you know, identify it as such.
They could be paid monthly versus,
I'd like to
Every other
negotiate
week.
this terms, if I were to be considered as an employee, I'd like to negotiate this terms. Yeah, I have certain feelings about that, so the village may, if I am selected as that employee, I have certain opinions on that, since it affects me.
yes, yeah,
And I'd like to discuss it offline with whomever is responsible.
yeah, absolutely.
I think there's an upside to this too, is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Justin. There are grants now, if this were to occur, that covers some of this. Is that also true in nature, that you could apply for certain things that help us?
Yeah, I mean, there is, I mean, thinking forward, if you were to take your part-time bank of hours, which is 20 hours a week, if you were to upgrade that to a full-time position, there are COP grants that are available that pay up to 50% of the salary over 3 years. It also gives us the ability to write, you know, law enforcement, JAG grants, things of that nature for law enforcement equipment, and enhanced systems.
So the ordinance we would put in would just, it would be the salary, the next ordinance would be the salary for,
To appoint Justin in that position.
well, the
and then
salaries, you would want,
specify.
you'd want a separate one just to establish the salary. And then you would have to go through a hiring process to hire him.
Well, you don't have to do a hiring process.
But
By Ohio Revised Code, I have the authority. to
that's what I'm saying.
Then you guys can either approve or reject. So that's really the way it would
All
work.
right, so we don't really need to put Justin's name in this. We just need to put that
Yeah.
salary for,
Well, we're taking all of this
Right.
out.
the salary for the marshal will be X amount of dollars, whatever we decided.
And that would be the other order.
Right,
Not
another
this.
one, okay.
Was there deliberation given to the having one person have both roles in the village? So Justin Hayden is the face of our code and enforcement, but he's also the village administrator. So if we talk about how does the resident feel calling to complain for the first time when that complaint would normally go to a village administrator? Oh, my neighbor's not cutting his lawn. And I don't want to get bogged down in the civil or the criminal or what the specific thing is, okay? But would their behavior or their feelings or their perceptions be altered by it being the same person. So like, I'm me, if I'm calling about my neighbors, I don't want to be busted and their lives ruined because I run them afoul of the law on the first call. So
That would go to, that would go straight to Ed.
Still good for, I think that was still good for Ed. Well,
take the bigger question. If we talk about one person serving both roles,
The optics of it.
think about
I know in my mind, when we all talked about hiring an administrator or some position thereof, what was a positive in my mind over any other candidate was the fact that Justin also was an Ohio peace officer, which in my mind, I thought, and I think we had talked at length, that we could serve a dual purpose.
That didn't go into my decision. I knew it was a possibility, but it didn't go into my decision.
It entered in mind, but I think we had talked about it.
There was brought to when we were going through the process of interviewing and hiring.
It was brought up,
Okay.
a potential down the road, but,
This isn't the first time we're hearing it. I didn't like it then. I'm trying to be neutral on this and trying to look at it from all sides. I'm not convinced by that thesis, but
I think I played devil's advocate in Justin's role and Rob's role pretty much, as far as the optics of it and how it looks. I think even tonight I've demonstrated, the fact of it as well. But I'm
Yeah,
still committed to the
I
fact.
tried not to even think about that aspect because we weren't hiring a village administrator at that time to be a police marshal. So that, I didn't know down the road how long it would take for us to address these other issues. And we had talked about addressing zoning issues through Addison possibly. I mean, there were a lot of other possibilities presented. And what we've come down to is that this is the best way for us to be able to do it. But I have also questioned whether or not this peace officer that is hired could also be the marshal. But you have to decide what kind of a salary you'd establish, put it out for advertising, do interviews to see if there's anybody, there's a lot that would go into that. And it might delay the whole process of us being able to enforce our ordinance. You could do it temporary, that he could temporarily fulfill it, so the council has looked at other possibilities.
I think it's a good discussion. I want to make sure that council's happy, because I think in my mind, this is long coming. But, I'm just one person.
Can I interject something here? Okay. So, you're talking about him taking the role on to do a job. And he's willing to do that. And if Chuck is overseeing, his performance with all of this, then honestly, isn't that the goal of what we're trying to do in this country right now, is eliminate government and not put more people in positions that don't need to even be there? He's gonna do the job, and he's doing a good job at what he's trying to do here, which obviously this neighborhood needs this. We've gone on for a long time here with problems in this area with people not taking care of their properties and a lot of other things. And if he's gonna be willing to do this and he's doing a good job at it, hell at it. And if he needs to be compensated a little bit more for his efforts, good.
I don't think anybody's objecting to that. I think we've established a process by which we hire and add additional staff. And we just want to follow the process that we've been following all year. This establishing the job, the title, and then putting it out, like even when there's an open council seat. We interviewed 4 people one time for an open council seat, decided on the person earlier this year. And then another vacancy came open, and we didn't automatically pick someone from that 4. We sent it back out to residents in case there was a resident who wasn't interested in January, who might be interested in March. So I think all we're trying to do is follow our normal flow. I don't have a lack of, I think Justin could do the job, but I just think we need to do it consistently to what we've been doing
Well, and then
for everybody else.
once he's in that position for a little bit, if his performance isn't up for what council feels he needs to be doing, then at that point in time, you have a review of all of it again, and basically you make changes.
That's why you do a formal ordinance establishing the position and compensation. This isn't designed to do that. That's what we're talking about.
Okay, well, that's good, and then,
Yeah.
I
It's just separating.
I don't
them.
understand the whole politics of how all that works, but I do know my whole point with it is somebody needs to do the job.
I agree.
And we cannot continue in this neighborhood here to have what's gone on here happening, because it's gonna deteriorate to nothing but trash here eventually.
We agree. That's why this is in front of us.
But from what I heard, is that you're looking at a second person, and Justin would just oversee this other person, and he would oversee the complaints and reports. Is that not what I heard?
That's possible, but what Kevin is suggesting is you could hire a peace officer that would be the marshal and the officer that would go. You could have someone else solve that dual role.
Is she using those terms? I'm confused. So is she using those terms correctly? There are two positions here. There's a marshal, that's like the chief, and then there's a
The
PO.
marshal is strictly a administrative oversight.
That's-
When you, just like with the waterworks department, you either have to have an administrator or a water board to oversee the operation. Same with the police department. You have to have an appointing authority, the police department. You have to have a head of that police department, which is either town marshal or chief of police. In our case, being a village, it's a town marshal. It was proposed that I would serve that role. I wouldn't take any enforcement action. I would just oversee the appointed part-time peace officers. And they would be the ones to investigate the claims, issue citations if necessary. I would serve as the bail at the mayor's court, which is a requirement. I could present cases to save money. I would report statistics to the state and make sure that we're compliant with our statutory requirements, so policy procedure manual, crime statistic reporting, things of that nature. The reason that I was included in this plan is because based off of my research and the law director's research and been working with fiscal officer, it was the only way to make it possible financially.
Well, to start out with the budget that we were looking to start out with. But there would be another officer, Kevin.
So
The plan called for a possible two. But
let me repeat back and let me tell you what I'm hearing. So when our second ordinance, number 17 or whatever, comes back to us next month, what it will say is we are looking to appoint current village administrator as our marshal. Will it also say that we are appointing him as a part-time peace officer reporting to himself?
no,
No. No, at a later date and time, we have to appoint a marshal.
Does the marshal have to be a peace officer?
Yes. Marshal has to be a peace officer.
Temporarily.
And the marshal has to be in place first so we can establish.
I'm straight as y'all are.
All right. If everybody is okay with moving forward,
Can I ask one more question? For the mayor's court, if someone goes in front of the mayor's court, they have to pay, or can they pay court costs? Or is that not? the mayor's court?
Yeah, so when you're cited to mayor's court, you'll have your fine and court costs.
Okay.
And that's up to the magistrate on if they can waive the fine and assess only court costs, or you could be found not guilty, or it could be dismissed. It's really is up to the magistrate, but yes, there will be court costs.
some revenue will come in to offset it, but most likely we will not have the numbers to totally.
Right, that'll help.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah,
It should be looked at as an additional expense,
correct,
investment in
correct.
community cohesion and compliance.
I would suggest that we hold off on the organization chart till this is passed and then revise the organization chart to include this particular branch, their assessment.
Yes, sir.
point. Do you report to yourself, the marshal reports to the village administrator, or does the marshal report to the mayor?
You know, one of the parts we did look at, law director and I, is that the Ohio Attorney General has a compatibility opinions index, 160 pages to go out. To answer your question, no. There would be a conflict of interest if it was designed that way. The town marshal would report directly to the mayor and the council members, so it's not a subordinate position to the village administrator.
And so disciplinary authority lies with either. Can we impeach you as marshal?
Yes, that's outlined in the Ohio Revised Code.
Actually, yes.
It's outlined in the Ohio Revised Code, and there's like, Brax and Bis malfeasance, there has to be a certain.
Everybody else we can impeach? Sounds like fun.
That drag is me.
You know all about that, don't you?
Yes, I do.
All right.
Where do we stand in this? What do we do?
I'm ready to
So
move
if
forward.
everybody's ready to move forward, I would like to introduce and read by title. What do you do? Make a motion to suspend the rules and read by title only. Ordinance number 16, 2024, with the changes of a grammatical error, putting the word "of" between enforcement and village in the title. Should be enforcement of village ordinance. As well as the correction to section 4, removing everything after the Ohio Revised Code 737.15. In addition to an additional correction, section 5, it's on here as 6, it should be 5. So I would like to
I think you did it.
introduce, make the motion to read by title only, ordinance number 16, 2024.
I do think section 14 though has to go beyond the code number and at least say that a fire marshal will be
Not a fire marshal.
It says the village
police
shall,
marshal.
the village shall appoint a marshal consistent with Ohio Revised Code 737.15. I believe that is sufficient.
Okay, yeah, okay,
Then our next ordinance would be us appointing
gotcha, okay,
specific person to that position
that's
with
fine,
whatever compensation.
that's fine.
Motion was made.
I made that motion.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Ms. Weiser, second by Mr. Walters. Is there any further discussion? Kenny, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Bolton,
Yes,
Mr. Babel,
Yay.
Ms. Meister,
Yes.
Ms. Meyer,
Yes.
Mr. Walters,
Yes.
Mr. Burns.
I would now like to make the motion to adopt ordinance number 16, 2024.
I'll second.
So you're making the motion, Jerry? Okay, and second by Mr. Walters again. Any further discussion? Go ahead, call the roll, Penny.
Mr. Burns,
Yes.
Mr. Walters,
Yes.
Ms. Meyer,
Yes.
Ms. Meister,
Yes.
Mr. Babel,
Yay.
Ms. Bolton.
yay.
Motion passes 6-0.
Okay. Not done yet.
I want to take a quick second to thank everybody. I really do.
All right.
And I want to thank you all for being more patient with me.
I also,
Thank you.
under my report, there's also the matter of the ordinance authorizing village administrator to execute a contract with the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office for law enforcement services. Any discussion on the sheriff's department?
And that was where you outlined the 3 years of reduced cost.
Yes. This will take us through December 31st.
Is that a pre-number down here somewhere?
No, this will be ordinance number 17.
But does it have another number assigned to it? No. I'm trying to
Not
find it
that I
in
have
my
it in
stats.
my
Okay,
Negotiating with
Negotiate with themselves.
Well, again, did we not come to any table and discuss anything of this nature, or is this just for us and said, here it is, take it or leave it.
That's about the way you can describe it, Gary. You're not gonna get a whole lot more out of them than this. This is what they offer to all the villages, every township, and, we don't have the, negotiating power to do much else.
Or to reduce rates.
17.
Yeah, there is a reduced rate, and just one, we can discussing all the other things that are on here as far as your memorandum of understanding.
I mean, again, I can, I've submitted that to, I had a phone conversation with Major Kedem, submitted a memorandum of understanding to him for adoption. I haven't received it back. Based off our phone conversation and my discussion with Sergeant Carney, I don't see there being an issue. If we, go ahead.
I was gonna say, should we hold off on this till you get a definite answer from them on that?
No, I believe my MOU is, well, that's up to council if we want to sidebar and talk about that more, we can.
That, you sent that MOU out in an email yesterday or today. Did that go to all of council or just, am I the only one that's seen that?
Memorandum of understanding. I sent that to you as the safety committee chair.
Okay.
It was a.
So the rest of council has not seen that?
No, not at this point.
Okay, we should probably discuss that, so they are.
How's that different than this contract? How are they different?
It just helps to outline, the MOU is to outline shared communal spaces here in this building and expectations, which is actually, I brought up a portion of that conversation with Sergeant Carney, and he expanded on it to say that if we do establish a local authority and bring our mayor's court back, I had made mention to, I thought it would be reasonable for us to have the center that's no longer used. He liked that idea and said that we could work together to establish some sort of shared space and work for both of us. But he also added that he thought it would be a good idea if we had access upstairs across the hall where the clerk's at. As long as we address adding a door and securing areas that we can't have access to and they can't have access to, we were in agreement. He actually presented it that let's allow our local authority and clerk and officers to have access to the front room there. We'll put the criminal justice terminal, which has to be secure, fax machine and copy reader. So it's actually our relationships really advanced in the last 3 months.
So
I'm happy for, but
it's different than what the contract with the sheriff.
the contract with the sheriff's one thing. We felt
Why are we combining that MOU?
we're not combining. It's not a combination.
This is really coming out of what Mr. Walter was talking about. Has there been a negotiation? There's not gonna be a negotiation on dollars. They're telling us exactly what they're gonna do. They're giving us a lower rate because the county commissioners are subsidizing it.
For 3
And
years.
Addison is into the mix now as well.
And they've already approved theirs. So each one of those have to bring it back to our councils. I don't know what else we can do. Can't create the reform, the Ohio revised code was very clear, it's become full price. And the only reason they're not charging full price is because of the fact that the county commissioners are subsidizing.
Yeah.
So I don't know what negotiations we would have.
So we're getting a 3-year break, but we still have negotiating power with the MOU in terms of the building,
That is
use
correct.
of the building.
Correct.
Right, a few months ago when there was the issue, we had
Right,
issues about
right.
the building and about us having access to the boiler room.
I got some,
The MOU is addressing some of those concerns we
but
have.
not the contract.
But not the
itself.
contract,
We can
no.
pass this. We don't have to hold it.
Which I think Penny can attest to. We had to call the Hamilton County Sheriff's Department last night because we got a natural gas leak here. And when she and I were working last night, you could not get in to even test it. We got somebody down. That'll probably remain the same. I'm not sure.
That's covered in the MOU if we do get it addressed. The reason that we would hold off on this, I mean, you look at any contract, it's the price and terms. And while we're in agreement to the price, I think Ms. Meister's point, and the reason I reached out for the MOU is we didn't want to sign up an ordinance and agree to a contract with them until we had guess, a meeting of the minds on the terms as well. And so originally, this conversation started as the Western District that now serves 7 subdivision or political subdivisions is operating out of our building. All the vehicles are being parked there. We're providing all energy costs associated with housing them. And we thought that there should be some sort of compensation credit that comes back to us for allowing them to use that. However, and this is where it intertwines with bringing a local authority back in our mayor's court, and working with Sergeant Carney, we rewind back to September, it was a non-starter to have any of that space. At this point, our relationships enhanced to where we can have a conversation, actually building off of it. So Ms. Meister heading safety committee, negotiating this, I reached out to her and I said, my recommendation, if they're willing to allow us access to these spaces that we otherwise haven't had access to, let's forego asking for a credit on this contract as long as there's an understanding that we'll have shared space in all areas. That's where they tie it. But to your point, no, it has nothing to do with the price of this contract.
You're gonna have to authorize him to sign. That's where the issue comes.
Right, right.
We don't want,
So-
we don't want what happened last time.
No.
The administrator signed.
No, I agree. I just don't think we need to muck it up with the MOU.
No, so we're good then to go ahead and move forward with this.
And at some point, we might agree to we might have to authorize an MOU, or is that something the administrator can do on his own?
Well, I think there's a cost factor there. His limitation still remains $5,000. And we're not talking about a dollar amount.
We're just talking about
He
negotiating
has the
space in
ability
the
to sign
building.
contracts.
So he's authorized to do, okay. That's just the first I heard of an MOU, so.
And I just thought it was good to know that there is movement of the sheriff's department. That's a good thing.
Yeah, I agree.
One thing about this contract. Oh, never mind. I answered my own question.
Oh, if they don't, go ahead.
I answered my own question when I reread the, whatever. Are there any questions about the Hamilton County Sheriff's contract? So for the public, I'm gonna go ahead and read parts of it. The anticipated annual cost associated with this contract is the year 2025 Sheriff Services contracted rate will be $215,522.33. For the year 2026, the Sheriff's contracted rate will be $227,375.91. For the year 2027, the Sheriff's contracted rate will be $279,861.84. This contract will take us through December 31st, 2027. So if there's no questions, I would like to go ahead and, do we need to read this one?
We have to do it.
Yeah, you're gonna.
Okay, so I would like to introduce and suspend the rules and read by title only ordinance number 17, 2024. An ordinance authorizing the village administrator to execute a contract with the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office for Law Enforcement Services.
Motion made by Ms. Meister, seconded by Mr. Babel. Is there any further discussion? Any call the roll, please?
Mr. Burns, Mr. Walters,
Yes.
Ms. Meyer,
Yes.
Ms. Meister,
Yes.
Mr. Babel,
Yay.
Ms. Bolton.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Now, Jerry, you're
I
gonna-
would now like to motion to adopt ordinance number 17, 2024.
I'll second.
Motion made by Ms. Meister, seconded by Mrs. Bolton. Any further discussion? Any call the roll, please?
Ms. Bolton,
Yay.
Mr. Babel,
Yay.
Ms. Meister,
Yes.
Ms. Meyer,
Yes.
Mr. Walters,
Yes.
Mr. Burns.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Kevin, I don't know if you were planning on giving a parks tonight or not. We did talk about certain things, in your absence, but.
We'll give you a reprieve.
I'm very, the parks meeting is very bulleted, so sure, let me just make sure we hit the same points. Goal number one, we got a grant, that's really cool. The discussion was about when to execute on it, because we had 3 years to do it. There was a general feeling that waiting a year or two to develop a final plan, perhaps additional funds, more deliberate was the best way to go, and that seems to be where we landed on. There was then further discussion on how do we develop a more master plan for the main park. I think it was alluded to doing other work to develop concepts for the skate park as well, but most of this conversation was on moving forward with a vision for main Gulf Cleves Community Park. And if you hit all those points, then sorry to waste your time.
I think we got most of them.
Kevin, I'd like to let you know that you were not here yet to hear all the praise that you received for the Christmas.
Well, then why'd you do it?
I wasn't here, I didn't get to see anyone.
We're gonna
The
make
mayor
you
was
come to the
praising
front door.
you, and some of the residents were praising you and your efforts. I just want you to, since you're here to hear it, I want you to know that.
We don't want you to also watch the whole video.
I'll take it secondhand.
Take your
But
backpack.
I was segregating, Christmas walk versus parks. Parks was an actual meeting that we did bother to hold this week. Yeah, and I'd have my congratulations to everybody involved on the Christmas walk. Many thanks to Hamilton County for providing such generous funding that really brought back such great features that tied the scene together, and received high praise themselves. And because she's not here, I want to personally thank Mary Angeline, who without her on many fronts, we wouldn't have had the quality of event that we did, but in particular,
Great.
that I noticed because it was supposed to be my job. I was supposed to be the one getting people involved in the parade. She did all of it. So everybody that showed up was because of her. And everybody liked the parade. That was cool.
Oh, yeah.
So there's my comments. Thank you for the parades, but I'm very happy that it's turning out to be a better and better. You covered the fact that now everybody wants to do more of this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Look, he has a sleep cabin.
That's my life. No, I'm not back yet.
Monday, I saw you
I
today.
did.
Well, I hear your wife suggested a PTO day. I second that.
I didn't have a choice by the time I woke up Monday. I was like,
Okay, there you go. That's what it's for.
All right, I think I got very short mayor's report. So I'm gonna pass out to you. You can hand over, please. This is, what Cindy pulls together month by month. It's a little different than her normal report. But I think for the record, I wanted the council to look at the fact that we have been tracking, where we are. You know, we started the year, Linda, if you remember correctly, we started the year, we didn't know where our budget was. And we were really very cautious. And so right now, compared to a year ago, our general fund ending balance of November 30th, 2024 is $1,160,192 compared to November 30th, 2023. And when you take a look at our expenditures of the general fund, and you'll see those in red, you're gonna see the 66,000. That's the unpaid bills that we had left over from last year. 2023. So when you take a look at the old council spending 541,509, it should have been more. Okay, it should have been 607,509. And Jerry, I'll correct it when you do it, because you're good at writing these I have $2 signs, so I should have one of those off of
But that's not an ordinance, so that's okay.
there. Okay,
Well, you put it in parentheses.
well, whatever I did. So when you take a look at 2024, what I think in reality, even though it looks like we spent like bandits, and we did spend, but we did give our employees raises this year. I think, Linda, you did a salary adjustment at the start, and then you brought back a cost of living. So we have given our employees raises this year. But our actual spending, we wouldn't have to pay the 66,000, would have been $636,004. And then when you take a look at the revenue, you'll see that we have more revenue this year than what the old council had. And that in part, from what I understand, is because of the inside millage and the increase in the property valuation. I did have them take a look at our village administrator salary. You can see we're well under where Mr. Ray Hall was at this time last year out of our general fund. That in part is because of the fact that we didn't have a village administrator from March until Justin started in September. Then I want you to take a look at also a little bit as far as Cindy Ozer and Penny. Because it looks like you add those two figures together, they're being paid more than what Jim Brett was being paid. In reality, we're saving some money here on both of them. I want the public to understand this, and I want council to understand it. Last year, we had a cleaning contract for this building, the maintenance department, and the waterworks for $6,000 a year. The maintenance department has taken care of their own. So while we're giving John a lot of credit, he deserves that credit because he volunteered to do that, to take care of the cameras, so there'll be no cost to the village. But in addition to that, Penny's been clean. Boy, she is a clean. She makes sure everything is very clean. In fact, almost to the point where you almost hate to come on in at times because she's clean. But you can take a look, and right now, we've saved this year, just on the work she's done, $4,272. And that doesn't sound like a lot of money, but that's an important savings. So Penny, I want to thank you for doing that for us. And then you take a look at Cindy, and you take a look at her salary. What's not calculated into that is the fact that we used to have to pay Paycor $6,000 a year to do our checks. Cindy took over that and is not charging the village anything. So this year alone, she's going to save us about $3,500. So,
Well, he's doing it with our UAN software payroll edition.
correct.
So a payroll function of UAN we've never used before. Now we're using it.
Now we're
He
using
used it, found it in experience.
And Mr. Brett wasn't.
No,
Okay. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of rundown. We're hanging in there. Not rich by any means, but we are hanging in there. And so that was one thing. And then I wanted to hand out your committee. But before I do that, I know we were supposed to do this last year, and I don't think we did it. I don't want to forget it this year. I think we were supposed to have a motion in January of last year on where we were going to post our notices. I think we're supposed to do that annually. So that's what I've
I
seen.
thought we did talk about that.
I think that was the year before.
You've only done it 1 year.
Sorry, I know, I don't remember doing it last year.
Well, you've done it once since you've been here.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes, I
Okay.
remember doing it.
Well,
So like, do
we need
you
to
do
do it
them?
again though for this coming year. So we post at the municipal building, we post at Maryland's Hardware, the water department, on our website, the post office, and the library. Those are our areas. So I would like to have those same areas for 2025. So I would like to have a motion to approve that again so that we everybody knows where it's gonna be posted, and we have a record in our minutes.
I'll make that motion to approve those specified sites and posting notices.
I'll second it.
Second by,
Oh,
motion by Ms. Meister and seconded by Ms. Meyer. Any further discussion? Please call the roll, please.
Ms. Bolton,
Yay.
Mr. Babel,
Yay.
Ms. Meister,
Yes.
Ms. Meyer,
Yes.
Mr. Walters,
Yes.
Mr. Burns.
The last thing is, and these are the committee assignments, I would like for us to have our meetings in January, so we're not, we've got momentum and we need to continue the momentum, so I'm gonna pass these out. And I'm gonna read this for a second. I know, Kenny, can you give that one for?
Yeah, absolutely. Give it a roll.
Here we go.
I
So-
to me,
You know, it's a little bit different situation this year because we're adding streets in there. And we really don't have the need for a zoning meeting every month. I think, Jerry, what you've done is when the need arises, you call those meetings as far as planning and zoning commissions. And you and I have been working pretty much on the Alton County model zoning. So I'd like to leave you as the chair for that. I think those citizens, I believe, have to be reappointed this year. I think their term was just to the end of this year. Penny, am I right on that? Do you have their, when the,
Yep.
would you check that?
I can grab it.
Please?
Yep.
So I think we're gonna have January 1, if they're gonna stay the same, we need to swear, vote on them and swear them back in. As far as finance, I hope the descriptions helped you somewhat. I know, Kevin, you talked about the economic growth, and I'm thrilled with that because Linda and I talked about the need to look forward to different types of revenue and expanding our business base and economic development, which all contributes to finance. So this year I've got Linda Bolton, Kevin and Jerry, same committee. Public safety, I've left you in charge, Jerry. Stephanie, I've assigned you on that committee along with Ted Badel. Streets, Linda, I'd ask you to sort of appoint somebody for finance at some point. You don't need to do that tonight. But I'd like to have Stephanie and Ted on that. We have an unfinished issue in Coleman Woods that deals with whether we're gonna have a gate or not gonna have a gate. We had a big meeting here, where it was well attended. We're gonna need to figure that out this year and hold a public, as we promised to do that for the residents in Coleman Woods. So
Street committee and stuff.
I think we've gotta talk about how we're gonna deal with it. Edgefield's in trouble. Edgefield's got issues. But all of our streets have issues. So I think from the standpoint, Stephanie, you live on Edgefield. So you're probably more familiar with it. Kevin, you gotta drive past it, so I know you're familiar with it.
I'm just trying to figure out which committee will address that issue.
Well, I think streets on the.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah,
Should be the beginning.
I think that's where it should be. And then on parks, Kevin, I've left you as chair. Linda requested to be on the Parks Committee. And Gary, you were on it last year.
I love parks. I've always been a fan
You
of
just
parks
make my life miserable.
for baseball particularly.
So
Yeah, and I need to make your life visible.
the only other thing
That
I'm
was
gonna
my only
ask
opportunity.
is we had our meetings spread all over the place. It's almost like we had a meeting every week. Penny, I don't know if you want to comment on that at all. You've talked to me about it. You feel comfortable enough to express what you said to me or not?
Well, when I was hired, I was just doing one meeting a month. So now I'm doing one meeting a week. So
Yeah, it's not something she's not opposed to it, but almost, I I think we're all in a situation where we're in a lot of meetings. That's all we describe it.
Can I just throw something out there?
Sure.
Why does Penny have to do the minutes for all the committee meetings? Why can't the committee chairs
I have no
be
problem with that.
responsible for those minutes?
As long as they get them done and we get them in a folder, I have no issue with that. But when we're having difficulty at the start of the year getting some of the reports back from some of the chairs, not all the chairs, but some of the chairs. So I thought, let's not worry about it. Let's put her into it. I am perfectly fine. I'm sure you'll be perfectly fine.
Mhm.
But once again, if there's a way to get those two meetings on the same night, it'd be great.
What two, all of the committee meetings?
No, I'm talking about, it used to be you had like, before I was on here, you had, I forget what they were. It was finance, and then you had parks, and then you had zoning, and you had something else.
All in one night?
No, these were-
There was safety, there was finance, there was planning, zoning, what else was there?
Get two on one evening, like we've
Yeah.
been doing somewhat, like you have one at 6 and one at 7, so you can get two done in one evening. I think it'd be best if we figure out who sits on committees and maybe we can.
Are you planning on changing the date of your parks committee? Because I'm okay with finance, or, I would like to move safety to 7 PM, but I'm okay with doing it the same night as.
When do you do your park meetings, Kevin?
I don't like 5:30 time on Thursday.
You move back 6, but I'm moving back 7.
I'd like to consult on that.
And you guys aren't.
It'll only be 1 month till volleyball picks up, and then my schedule will work. So,
Planning and zoning meets third Thursday. And it's kind of an ad hoc in some cases, but I like the fact that I'm getting reports then from Ed that I can give an update as to where the status is. So I think those might be more forthcoming versus an ad hoc meeting, but I'm the one that's always out there. I do need Penny if we have public meetings. I can't chair the chair, or at least listen to the public, guide the commission and take notes. I could, but I'm gonna wind up losing
I
track.
think planning commission has always had their own newspaper because of the legalities of some of it.
Very might well be. It's just,
And we could do that when we do the council meetings, and then would alleviate if the rest of us did our own.
Yeah, I mean, I was doing my own. The problem is I'm not gonna do word for word like I did when I was a court reporter. I'm not gonna, it's gonna be a very, they call high level, I guess, a summary of what was discussed. I'm not gonna be putting out a 4-page finance committee minutes. I can tell you that. Because I can't participate and get everything everybody said down at the same time.
Topic.
Yeah,
I just wonder if I ought to pull mine back in the same week as before council in some cases. I'm always the one I say that I am, but planning and zoning is always after council. And then you hear what I've done in previous.
Are you planning on doing a meeting every month?
Well, it just, it depends on what we do with the town marshal and how we want to update everybody with that. And, again, I think that further discussion, I don't mind that again,
Well, all I'm asking, you guys can figure it out together, but there's some way we can get those done and stay off, as I was telling Linda, I really feel like I have to get to the Miami Township meetings to figure out what they're doing.
I think those are on Wednesdays.
Those are the third Wednesday of the month.
yeah, and right now, finance is the 4th Wednesday. I work in Clifton on Wednesday and Thursday, so soonest I can get here is usually around 6. I clock in and out. I punch a time clock, so if I clock out early to come to a meeting, I gotta make that time. So I can get from Clifton to here by 6. But on Monday and Tuesday, I work from home. So I clock out at 5, I can be down here at 5:30. But that's my situation. I don't have a problem working with somebody.
Can you guys sort of figure out where they best fit? And then just let me know so we get it on our website.
Kevin, do you feel that the Parks Committee needs to have this do you take notes for Park Committee?
Mhm.
Do you feel that you still need that official?
I had taken care of it myself in the past. It's fine. It's certainly more detailed with kind of there.
And I don't mind doing it at all. That's not a problem.
And just trying to condense it down.
Yeah,
I get it.
yeah.
So.
I'm happy to do it. I'm not,
Mine two, then the others can take care of themselves and just get it.
if that works for them.
Or we can get it on the 2 meetings on the same night.
That would be,
Okay.
that'd be best if that works out.
Well, we'll talk about
I would, yeah, let's pull her into the scheduling process for one.
I think would be available if you were calling a meeting.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, for sure.
Again, I don't want to burden you either.
Oh,
Have
no,
an email
that's
as
fine.
far as Safety, I'm flexible, I can change it to a different day to accommodate.
it. I'm not on safety, so.
But like, to keep two meetings on one night, Kevin wants to change parks to a different day, I'm flexible, I can change.
Okay.
I just can't do.
What day and time is that?
As it stands right now, public safety is the first Thursday of every month. And I'm moving it to 7 starting next month.
And finance is the 4th Wednesday of the month, and it can be moved as well. When I came here, in my mind, I thought if I keep all Wednesdays open for village, then I can golf on Tuesdays, I can do this. But that's not conducive for everybody else. So I am free to do other nights as well.
I personally was happier when Parks was on Wednesday.
Well, can we somehow combine finance and parks on the same night? How long do your park meetings last?
The only consideration is that Jerry is trying to get her vote her meeting. But certainly we would both be there.
As far as finance, which one are you talking about changing? Parks to a,
Parks to the
To
4th Wednesday with
Wednesday.
finance.
I'm not on parks, that's fine with me. I don't mind coming 2 different days for my 2 different.
Gary, are you okay on the 4th Wednesday of the month at the park?
Well, I don't have an issue. I mean, I might be traveling. I'll let you all know. Or
Well, let's let Kevin think about it and see what he can really.
Have a good night.
But finance is taking up to 2 hours. So I would rather have the later one for finance. I would think. Yeah, how long are your parks meeting?
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, you
Safety
gotta-
meeting was after parks, so he was
Right.
going to get done by 7, by 6:30, because safety, but I wasn't prepared to be in the movie, I didn't establish that time. It's like you, I clock in and out, it's difficult for me to rush here to get here by 6:30, that's why I'm moving it back to 7.
Okay. So I'm just asking you, do you need an hour or more for parks?
We're never done with it.
Okay. Okay.
then planning and zoning is the 3rd Thursday, 6:30. Is that present?
I just have to come from Clifton on Thursday, but I do
I
on
mean, I can
Wednesday.
move mine back to 7:00 too. And then I do.
But I can't get here earlier than 6.
No, I don't
That's
want to get,
7.
no, yeah, I can move it back, I mean, I can move it up to 7:00 if necessary. If needed. And I do try to keep it an hour by limiting input from,
You mean you can move yours to 6:00, so.
mine's normally at 6:30.
Starts at 6:30,
Oh.
he's saying he can make it start at 7, if that would give you more time to make it easier.
Kevin said he needs more than an hour.
Well, we'll get. the-
Let's talk about it. Let's discuss this later. Let's just try to condense it a little bit so it's not all over the
I
place.
agree. Who would you put on, streets?
Well, it's right here. I don't know. We have to talk about that.
I mean, all 3 of these work, right?
Yes. None of us are retired yet.
I didn't know if we would.
Me, Jerry, and Kevin.
I didn't know whether we would
And
have that
Stephanie
meeting
is
on the
retired.
day. But it's also stuff.
That's the other issue.
My committee, we'll discuss offline about the time that works best for us.
But you also meet it up. You also attend finance. So we gotta look, I think, at all of that, so, okay. Let's just kind of figure out tentatives. And when does volleyball start, Kevin?
Now,
February 15th.
Okay, so we have a little time to. Except do we want to keep them as they are in January instead of change them for February? Because that's where if you want it done by January, we.
I'd like us to be able to meet in January, you know, so that we get wherever we're headed, we're moving forward.
I
our
think we can
February
discuss
meeting is
meeting
in
times.
I agree. Okay,
And you guys are just let,
Stephanie, did you guys have safety with 7?
Yes.
all right, you got, one last thing to do. I'm gonna read this out loud for the public, what's left of the public. We're gonna go into executive session, and I have 3 areas I need to read. Ohio Revised Code 121.22. And I need a motion to go into executive session for public meeting exception G1 to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official, or the investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee, official, licensee, or regulated individual, unless the public employee, official, licensee, or regulated person requests a public hearing. Also,
You gotta stay.
conversations with an attorney for the public body, or concerning disputes about the public body, that are subject to integrity court action. And G4, preparing for, conducting, or reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation or the terms and conditions of their employment. And do I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Babel. Do I have a second? Second by Mrs. Bolton. Any discussion? Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Burns,
Yes.
Mr. Walters,
Yes.
Ms. Meyer,
Yes.
Ms. Meister,
Yes.
Mr. Babel,
Okay.
Ms. Bolton.
yay.
And that passes 6-0, and we will return to open session and we may take action.
Oh, boy, sounds like fun.
Yeah.
We may take action.
We may take action. Everybody needs a break here first.